under everyone's expectant gazes, the first sparring match between Ling Han and the cauldron-forging tier prodigy of Western Heavenly Realm was about to begin. This was carried out in the Nine Suns' Holy Land. With a venerate tier overseer, naturally no one dared to play any tricks. There were too many people watching the battle. They had all turned on the connection device and carried out a live broadcast, broadcasting the battle live to the Galaxy Network. No matter which corner of the galaxy it was, as long as there was Galaxy Network, and as long as there was a connection device, they could watch it live. Ling Han, it's time for a fight. Hurry up, Hunyo urged. She was a violent maniac and loved fighting the most. Meanwhile, Ling Han was still sipping tea, not worried at all. That was indeed the case. This battle was not something that he wanted to fight. Moreover, there were no benefits to be gained. Previously, with the divine source as a reward, he had let it drag out for a long time before stepping out, wanting to get more benefits. This time, it was completely for the sake of the reputation of the North Heavenly Realm. Though he would step out to fight, his enthusiasm was naturally greatly reduced. So what if we let them wait for a while longer? The Empress was proud. As she saw it, everyone in the world should revolve around her and Ling Han. What reason was there for them to rush over? Princess Bixiao merely smiled as she watched from the sidelines. She would never have imagined that Ling Han would one day grow to such a height and become the strongest cauldron-forging tier in a whole heavenly realm, no, the entire universe. In future, he would also become the strongest core formation tier, the strongest true self tier, and the strongest true lord tier, charging all the way to the peak of martial arts. After Ling Han finished his tea, he stood up and slowly walked out. Ling Han! Ling Han! Ling Han! When he reached the martial arts arena, cheers that seemed capable of collapsing mountains and shattering the earth instantly erupted. At this moment, he was even more important than a venerate tier. That was because no venerate tier could redeem pride for North Heavenly Realm, while Ling Han could. Ling Han smiled at everyone, one after another. Then, he walked out of the crowd, and a large area was cleared ahead of him, so that he could spar with the people of the West Heavenly Realm. Come, who will fight me? Ling Han asked calmly. You can only battle me. Ning Xingfa walked out. He was tall and slender, and his black hair reached his waist. If one looked at him from behind, it was possible that they would misunderstand that he was a slender woman. Because you will be defeated today, and there will be no more battles 3 days later. Ling Han glanced at him and shook his head. Compared to that an eye went by, you don't seem to be all that much stronger. How about this? The 3 of you attack together. If you can withstand 10 moves from me, that will be considered your victory. Just what kind of contempt was this? Ning Xingfa couldn't help but fly into a thunderous rage. His fighting spirit ignited. His head of black hair actually became crimson all of a sudden, causing him to turn from a cultured and refined person into a ferocious and sinister one. The aura he exuded was incredibly terrifying, causing the cauldron-forging tier disciples in the surroundings, as well as foundation-building tier disciples, to feel fear in their hearts, and it was difficult for their fighting spirit to rise. With a soft exclamation, he charged towards Ling Han. Ling Han didn't dodge or evade, and he only attacked when Ning Xingfa neared him. He was extremely casual, yet he easily grabbed onto Ning Xingfa's neck. Everyone was numb with shock. Though everyone already knew how strong Ling Han was, to be able to take down the second strongest person in Cauldron Forging tier in the Western Heavenly Realm with a single move, this still made people feel as if they were in a dream. They were both Cauldron Forging tiers, so why was there such a huge gap between them? How had this guy cultivated to this level? And this scene was also broadcasted live on Galaxy Network, causing tumultuous waves. Fuck! Ning Xingfa is ranked 9th in Cauldron Forging tier on the Galaxy Network. But even he was defeated by Ling Han in a single move. Then, even if it was the current number 1 Cauldron Forging tier of the Galaxy Network, Zhu Chengyun, the number 1 prodigy of the Southern Heaven Realm, just how many moves could he take in Ling Han's hands? I heard that he has created a fusion cauldron, and that is why he has such terrifying abilities. Haha. Looks like the Western Heavenly Realm is seeking their own humiliation this time. Please add the word, again. To say nothing of the Western Heavenly Realm, Even if the Eastern Heavenly Realm and the Southern Heavenly Realm moves, in the level of Cauldron Forging tier, who would be a match for Linghan? Unless it's those mysterious guys. Origin. Myriad Dao. Heaven Crushing. Number 1 in the galaxy. Linghan casually tossed Ning Xingfa aside. He then looked at Extreme Frost Venerate and said, Senior, it's best that those two attack together. That way, they can save me some time. Extreme Frost Venerate was rendered speechless. Actually, he didn't want to make this trip, but when he returned last time and told them about the matter, the entire Western Heavenly Realm exploded. They actually lost to the North Heavenly Realm? What kind of joke was this? Even if it was only losing a minor battle, they could not abide this. This was a great humiliation. Thus, they had sent out 2 stronger members of the Cauldron Forging tier, as well as Ma Ziming, a super rookie, to win back some face. Extreme Frost Venerate actually knew very well that Linghan had insta-defeated an I-1 with a single move at that time. Even if he had sent Wang Huazong, Ning Xingfa, and the others, so what? They would only be delivering themselves up to be defeated. As expected, the gap was too wide. He waved his hand and said, Huazong Ziming, the 2 of you attack together. Wang Huazong and Ma Ziming both wore solemn expressions. In the West Heavenly Realm, it was only other Cauldron Forging tiers that would team up to battle them. Now, however, the 2 of them still needed to team up. The problem was that even if they joined forces, they did not have the slightest bit of confidence that they could win. How could this opponent be so strong? However, no matter how uncertain they were, they still had to fight. If they didn't even have the courage to fight, would they still have the face to call themselves cultivators? The 2 of them walked out together and approached Linghan. Charge! The 2 of them pounced out at the same time. Linghan shook his head. Even the strongest elite of the West Heavenly Realm was only SOSO. They had just barely touched the battle prowess of the first heaven of the core formation tier. He shot out a punch which was extraordinarily fast. Shwa shwa, in an instant he had delivered 2 punches. Then he saw Wang Huazong and Ma Ziming fly into the air. They were completely outmatched. After an instant of silence, the whole area erupted, as they all shouted Linghan's name loudly. If it was said that Linghan, being the strongest Cauldron Forging tier before, was only a label that the people of the North Heavenly Realm had called out on their own, then it could be said that it was a sure bet now. Even the East Heavenly Realm and the South Heavenly Realm had to admit it. How many years had the North Heavenly Realm been suppressed for? Just look at the Cauldron Forging tier cultivators. The highest ranked Feng Jixing was only ranked 12th, and he hadn't even made it into the top 10. Now, however, one of their own had suddenly soared to the first place. Moreover, this was the undisputed first place. How could they not be excited? Extreme Frost Venerate shook his head. This result was within his expectations, but those stubborn old geezers of the Western Heaven Realm didn't believe him. Now, great, the Galaxy Network was broadcasting live, showing the entire world that the Western Heaven Realm had suffered a terrible defeat. Let's go. With a wave of his hand, he tore a rip into the void and left with Wang Huazong and the others. The battle for revenge of the Western Heavenly Realm ended just like that. They didn't even have 6 days to fight 3 battles. Linghan shrugged, turned and left. He decided to spend his time on familiarizing himself with the celestial techniques, such as the Fiery Sun subduing Demon Staff technique, the 18 Arhat Palm, and so on. He had not grasped the essence of these techniques, so there was a lot of room for improvement. He would only feel that there was not enough time. However, only a few days later, another group of people arrived at Nine Suns' Holy Land. Linghan, my young master has summoned you. A purple-robed man ran to his abode, and then said these words. Linghan faltered upon hearing this. What was going on? This was the Nine Suns' Holy Land? And what is your young master? Linghan asked with a smile. How dare you? The purple-robed man flew into a thunderous rage and delivered a palm strike towards Linghan. He was in the late stage of the core formation tier, and he had used his full power in this strike without any reservations at all. Linghan frowned and dodged to the side. The purple-robed man didn't attack again. Instead, he proudly retracted his palm and said, Our young master is the descendant of ancestral fire clouds. Imperial son Lin Lang. Imperial son? With a thought from Ling Han, he said, "All right, then let's go and see your imperial son." He was curious. Why had an imperial son come to find him? Furthermore, was there still a true imperial son now? Who knew how many generations of imperial grandsons there had already been? The purple-robed man only thought that Ling Han was afraid. He revealed an expression of pride. In the present era, the strongest force was naturally the imperial clans. As long as they revealed the identity of the imperial clan, the Nine Sons' Holy Land could only welcome them with open arms. He led the way ahead and very soon brought Ling Han to a pavilion, and in the pavilion there was presently a white-robed young man sitting upright. Behind him stood a young man and woman. The woman was as beautiful as a flower, and she was a core formation tier cultivator. She was dressed in red, and she stood with her hands by her sides like a maidservant. As for the male Lin Chi, hold on, Lin Chi and Lin Lang? Oh, they were a family. However, Lin Chi came from a side branch, and only possessed a sliver of the imperial clan bloodline. He was not qualified to be called the imperial son at all. Was he trying to stand up for Lin Chi? Ling Han turned to look at the white-robed person who was sitting upright. This was a tall, slender man, who looked to be about 23 or 24 years old. He was handsome and dashing, exuding an extraordinary aura. So this was the imperial son, Lin Lang? Huh? I can't tell what cultivation level he's at. Ling Han was surprised. This white-robed person seemed to have been enshrouded in a fog, so it was difficult to distinguish his cultivation level, making him appear extremely mysterious. However, Ling Han activated his ocular technique, and he immediately saw very clearly that this white-robed person was a cauldron forging tier. Furthermore, he could only vaguely see a celestial cauldron. Was it the human cauldron, or a fusion cauldron? Reporting to young master, Ling Han has arrived, the purple-robed man said respectfully to the white-robed young man. The white-robed young man was naturally Lin Lang. He nodded, and did not even raise his eyes. He merely lowered his head to look at a jade pendant. What arrogance! How dare you kneel down? Lin Chi shouted loudly. Ling Han was astonished. Why was he putting on airs now? He couldn't help but laugh in spite of himself. Lin Chi, do you want to be beaten again? Lin Chi's face involuntarily flushed red. Previously, when he had combusted his imperial blood, he had still been unable to defeat Ling Han. Now, his imperial blood was still far from recovering, so how could he possibly be a match for Ling Han? However, the members of the main clan were right in front of him, so how could he be weaken the might of the imperial clan? Ling Han, you have to know who the person in front of you is, he said balefully. A guy who doesn't know proper etiquette, Ling Han said calmly. I was invited here, yet the person in charge didn't even look at me directly. He. Who spoiled him to the extent of such poor manners? How dare you? The purple-robed man and the red-clothed woman both rebuked angrily. Yet Lin Lang finally raised his head and stretched out a hand to press down. Instantly, the purple-robed man and the red-clothed woman once again stood, their hands by their sides, indescribably obedient. I heard that you defeated a few minor characters of the Western Heavenly Realm, and were thus called the #1 elite of the cauldron forging tier. What a joke. He looked at Ling Han and shook his head, looking pitiful, as if he was mocking Ling Han for being a frog at the bottom of a well. Are you trying to say that you're actually the strongest cauldron forging tier elite? Ling Han asked. Putting aside whether I'm the strongest cauldron forging tier or not, it definitely can't be you, Lin Lang said. How many imperial sons and imperial daughters haven't appeared yet? So what right do you have to rule? Ling Han scoffed and said, when I was fighting for the North Heavenly Realm, where were you enjoying yourself? Now that I've defeated the people from the West Heavenly Realm, you come here and tell me that I'm not the strongest cauldron forging tier. I just want to say one thing. Are you fucking despicable? When these words fell, the expressions of the man in purple and the woman in red changed drastically, and though Lin Chi also looked furious, there was a hint of a cold smirk on his face. After offending Lin Lang, Ling Han would definitely be done for. Lin Lang, on the other hand, was not angered. He only shook his head. After all, with vulgar birth, there are no manners at all. Young master, let me cripple him, the purple-robed man commanded. This was really overbearing. This was the Nine Sons' holy land, and Ling Han was also the most valued disciple here. However, this measly core formation tier cultivator dared to declare that he wanted to cripple him. Lin Lang smiled faintly. I want to move personally. Young master, the purple-robed man and the red-clothed woman called out at the same time. With your status, how could this brat be worthy? Lin Lang waved his hand and said, Heh, this brat actually dares to claim that he's the #1 cauldron forging tier? I'll let him know what it means to be a frog at the bottom of a well. Hearing Lin Lang's words, the purple-robed man and the red-clothed woman did not try to persuade him further. However, they were all proud, and thought that Ling Han would definitely lose. Lin Lang stood up, crossed his arms behind his back, and slowly walked towards Ling Han. Having only defeated a few cats and dogs, and you actually dare to call yourself the #1 elite of cauldron forging tier. What a joke. Could it be that you don't know that this world belongs to the imperial clans? Ling Han shook his head. Does the strength of the imperial clan all come from their mouths? Haha. You are really arrogant. Lin Lang smirked coldly, his expression finally darkening. This lowly commoner was really too detestable. Boom, he released his aura, and instantly, a frightening might swept out like waves, wave after wave. It was indeed very strong. Ling Han nodded internally. To be honest, this Lin Lang was indeed stronger than Wang Huazong, Ma Ziming, and the other prodigies of the Western Heavenly Realm. In fact, he had even surpassed their combined forces. No wonder he had seen the live broadcast on the Galaxy Network and still dared to challenge him to a duel. However, Ling Han hadn't used much of his abilities at that time. At most, he could only unleash battle prowess at the 2nd heaven or 3rd heaven of the core formation tier. Looks like you still have some talent. In future, follow me, and become my dog, Lin Lang declared proudly. Quickly thank young master. On the side, the purple-robed man immediately shouted. Ling Han shook his head and said, How can anyone be so honorable as a dog? Ha! Becoming a dog for the imperial clan is your greatest honor, Lin Lang said. Then he threw a punch at Ling Han. Boom! Power condensed, turning into a green-colored iron fist that was the size of a human head. It was covered densely with divine patterns, as well as innumerable seals. The force of the punch surged over, and Ling Han merely snapped his fingers casually. Pa! A burst of power shot over, and this green fist immediately shattered, turning back into the power of heaven and earth. That's all you've got? Ling Han asked in surprise. A hint of anger appeared on Lin Lang's face. This lowly commoner actually dared to look down on him? You're seeking death. He threw another punch, and this time, the force of his punch actually turned into an azure dragon. The true dragon, the divine phoenix, the Qilin, and so on were all divine beasts from the ancient era. This could be considered the first-generation ancestral kings, and was born with the birth of the heaven and earth. However, after they died, there were no more divine beasts in the world. They had become legendary symbols. However, as long as it was associated with the divine beast, this meant that it was powerful. Lin Lang threw a punch, and it actually transformed into an azure dragon. Though this was only a simulation, it still showed just how strong he was. Seeing the might of this punch, the purple-robed man and the red-clothed woman naturally revealed proud expressions. This was their young master, a prodigy of the imperial clan. Meanwhile, Lin Qi revealed an expression of jealousy. He admitted that his natural talent was not much inferior to Lin Lang's, but precisely because he came from a side branch, he was unable to learn the imperial technique, and was also unable to get the help of the imperial weapon to create a fusion cauldron. Otherwise, he would also be able to stand proudly in front of Ling Han and knock this guy down with a single punch. Boom! The azure dragon surged over, unleashing an indescribable might. Ling Han estimated Lin Lang's battle prowess. In terms of power, the latter had reached the first heaven of the core formation tier and above, but had not touched the second heaven yet. It was probable that the former had fused the 9 cauldrons into one. Furthermore, the quality of the celestial cauldron was also very high, and would not be inferior to the 9-colored glass cauldron. Otherwise, even if the cauldrons were fused, the power of the cauldron could not possibly be so strong. And this attack had developed into the Azure Dragon. It was very possible that it was a saint technique that had pushed the might of this punch to the height of 3rd heaven and above. This was very strong, enough to suppress any ordinary cultivator in the middle stage of the core formation tier. However, in front of Ling Han this wasn't enough. Ling Han snapped his fingers, and shio, a gust of wind shot out, just hitting the Azure Dragon's head. An incredibly deep power surged past, destroying everything in its path, blasting this Azure Dragon into smithereens. What? Upon seeing this, Lin Lang instantly wore an expression of disbelief. Meanwhile, Lin Qi was also gaping in shock. Meanwhile, the purple-robed man and the red-clothed woman both wore expressions of constipation. Lin Qi had indeed seen Ling Han defeat Lu Qi before. That was a prodigy of the core formation tier, which was enough proof that Ling Han could match the early stage of the core formation tier, or even surpass it. But who was Lin Lang? Imperial's son. Hence, he believed that Lin Lang was even stronger, far beyond the reach of Lu Qi and Ling Han. However, after exchanging blows, he finally realized that he had been wrong. As it turned out, Ling Han's strength was not inferior to the Imperial son at all. Lin Lang frowned slightly and said, "I have underestimated you." Ling Han cracked a smile. "I didn't underestimate you, though." Lin Lang instantly felt anger rise up from the bottom of his heart. He stared coldly at Ling Han and said, "You can block a blow from me, but that does not mean that you are really capable of matching me." "One blow?" Ling Han asked calmly. Fuck, it was another head-on strike. Lin Lang clenched his fists tightly, his expression even uglier. With a battle cry, he charged towards Ling Han, and no longer used long-distance attacks to kill him. Initially, he had thought that a casual action would be enough to let Ling Han know what true strength was. But now, if he did not use his true strength, it would be impossible for him to deal with this opponent. Hong! 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 He attacked repeatedly, incredibly fierce, wanting to take Ling Han down with thunderous force. Ling Han parried every move, completely unconcerned. "I really can't underestimate the heroes of the world," he thought to himself. Look, just a random person is a prodigy that has fused the 9 cauldrons into one. Then, would there be a super genius that has fused 10 cauldrons into one? If Lin Lang knew what he was thinking, he would definitely be very depressed, because how many imperial clans were there in the whole universe? Only the most important heirs of the imperial clans were qualified to create a fusion cauldron, and there were pitifully few of them. "Kill! Kill! Kill!" Lin Lang shouted loudly. His hair fluttered in the wind, and each strand of hair was entwined with astonishing energy. If one strand floated down, it would be enough to kill a 9 cauldrons prodigy. Ling Han merely defended and did not attack. He wanted to see the true imperial technique. After exchanging a few dozen more blows, Lin Lang felt humiliated. Previously, he had put on too much airs and looked down on Ling Han, as if he would be able to deal with Ling Han in a few moves. In the end, they had already fought for so long, and the two of them were still in a tie. How humiliating. "Sword, come!" he shouted lightly, and the space between his brows split open, and a dark green long sword instantly flew out. This was the standard replica of the Lin clan's imperial weapon, the Jade Water Sword. Any important heir would have it, but with different cultivation levels and different identities, the might of the Jade Water Sword would also be different. "Die!" His hand gripped the hilt of his sword and delivered a slash at Ling Han. Wang. Sword chi bloomed, dazzling and resplendent. Ling Han clenched his hand into a fist, and the starlight screen spread open, wrapping around his fist, forming a layer of protection as he faced the sharp sword head-on. Though the only celestial cauldron could absorb power, it did not have much protection against the slashes of sharp weapons. Thus, if he wanted to take a sharp weapon head-on, it was better to use the starlight screen. Pong! 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 Ling Han's fist collided with the sword's blade, sending bursts of light into the surroundings. Lin Lang shockingly discovered that even if he used his spirit tool, he was actually still unable to suppress Ling Han. It should be known that this was a replica of the Imperial weapon. It had a sliver of Imperial might and could be claimed to be invincible. But now, faced with Ling Han's fist, it was actually unable to injure him in the slightest. How could he accept this? "Good one, brat!" he exclaimed lightly, withdrawing the last sliver of his contempt. This person was powerful enough to rival him. 8 heavenly king techniques. He sheathed his sword, then formed his hands into claws, adopting a very peculiar posture. Imperial technique. Ling Han's heart instantly clenched, and then a strong anticipation rose up in him. He finally had a chance to compete with the Imperial technique. Boom! Lin Lang's claw attacked. It was like an azure dragon stretching out its claws, or like a divine phoenix hunting a flood dragon. That aura was majestic and boundless. The Imperial technique was created by the great emperor, so it was naturally grand and majestic. Ling Han finally became serious and greeted the attack with the great overarching heaven technique. Pong! The two of them exchanged a blow, and instantly a figure was sent flying. It was Lin Lang. Even if he used the Imperial technique, he could only stimulate his battle prowess to 4th heaven and above. Compared to Ling Han, the gap was not just a little bit. What? Lin Lang could not accept this. He was a noble Imperial son, and was 100 times nobler than any Dao child, yet he was actually no match for a lowly commoner. How could he accept this? Ah! His face was flushed red, and a terrifying aura surged from his body. He was burning his Imperial blood. Even if he was the Imperial son and had a pure bloodline, it was actually relative. However, he was not the first-generation Imperial son after all, so the number of times he could burn the Imperial blood was only a dozen over times more than Lin Chi. This was his trump card. Originally, he would not use it unless it was crucial, but now, an Imperial son was actually no match for an ordinary ant. This caused a great blow to his pride. The pride of the Imperial clan would not allow him to fail. Thus, he was determined to defeat Ling Han at all costs. The Imperial blood ignited, and the effect was instantaneous. His body suddenly expanded, turning into a giant that was as tall as 30 meters, possessing monstrous might. In front of the Imperial clan, "All are ants!" Lin Lang shouted loudly. Then he waved his palm towards Ling Han. An extremely deep power reverberated, so terrifying that it could not be described. Ling Han smiled faintly. Didn't the great emperor also start off as an ordinary person? On the other hand, has the Imperial clan produced another great emperor? He leaped up, greeting Lin Lang's attack. The Imperial clan was indeed impressive. They basically had an Imperial weapon as their overseer and had deep roots. In fact, there was practically no gap in the ranks of saints. However, there was a strange phenomenon, and that was the Imperial clan was no longer able to produce an ancestral king. It was as if all their fortune had been used up that ancestral king of the clan. Their descendants would be despised by the heaven and earth, and would be lacking that sliver of luck. Becoming an emperor was not only a matter of natural talent, hard work, and abilities. Luck was really indispensable. Hence, a great many great emperors had all started from being ordinary. Hearing Ling Han's words, Lin Lang was speechless at first, then humphed. "You are really thick-skinned, to actually dare compare yourself to a future great emperor." Boom, his palm descended, and it was as if a house was pressing down, forming a dark mass. Ling Han leaped forwards, and his fist landed on that colossal palm. Instantly, a flash of light bloomed, and masses of seals exploded, forming a terrifying explosion. However, after combusting his Imperial blood, Lin Lang was truly too powerful. His battle prowess soared to the 9th heaven, and he could practically kill 99% of the core formation tier cultivators. Ling Han was instantly forcefully pressed down. Pong! The massive palm slammed into the ground, causing dust to fly into the air. "Young master is mighty. Young master is so domineering." The purple-robed man and red-clothed woman both called out, their expressions filled with reverence. Even if they were both in the core formation tier, if it was them facing this attack, they could only die immediately. Thus, Ling Han, who was in the cauldron forging tier, was definitely going to die. Lin Lang retracted his palm, causing dust to fly into the air again. Amidst the dust, a man was also standing tall like a javelin. What? The purple-robed man and the red-clothed woman both gaped, wearing expressions of disbelief. Meanwhile, Lin Chi wasn't much better off either. His eyes were almost popping out of his head. How was this possible? Meanwhile, Lin Lang frowned. His opponent's power was clearly several levels weaker than his. Logically speaking, with a palm strike from him, his opponent would definitely be turned into mush. How could he still be completely unscathed? Combusting the imperial blood is indeed very strong, Ling Han remarked with a nod. Lin Lang's raw power could reach above first heaven. After combusting the imperial blood, his power actually rushed up to 8th heaven. Then, he cast a Venerate tier-level celestial technique, and his battle prowess easily broke through to 9th heaven. It could only be said that the ancestral king was really too strong, so strong that they had surpassed logic. Even if they had long since died under the influence of the bloodline, it could actually cause their descendants to explode. This was truly terrifying. Ling Han sighed ruefully on the other side, while Lin Lang was about to go crazy. He had ignited his imperial blood, and he was still unable to defeat a cultivator of the same cultivation level? Who? He waved his hands repeatedly, and rapidly delivered a palm strike at Ling Han. Ling Han was unafraid, and brandished his fists in response. Pung, pung, pung. After every attack, the ground would rumble, as if it was about to tear down the Holy Land. But in truth, the Holy Land had been reinforced by generations of Venerate tier elites, and even a great battle on the level of Sect Master would only be able to blast down a few rocks. However, this kind of battle also attracted a great many people. Isn't this Ling Han? It can't be, right? There is actually someone that can stand against him at the same cultivation level, and even has the upper hand. Who is this monster? Hiss, I get it. Look, Lin Chi is still at the side. I understand now. That's the descendant of the ancestral King Fire Clouds. In the case of Cauldron Forging tier, only one person fits the criteria, and that is Lin Lang. Imperial son, Lin Lang. Everyone inhaled sharply. The Imperial clan was transcendent, and would not be affected by the division of the 4 heavenly realms. For example, the Buddhist race was even more so not one of the 4 heavenly realms, which had surpassed the mortal bonds. And in the Galaxy Network's rankings, though there were also figures of the Imperial clan, they were only from a side branch like Lin Chi. It was impossible for a real Imperial son or Imperial daughter to appear. For example, Prosperous Heaven. In fact, she was only the holy daughter of the Buddhist sect of North Heavenly Realm. However, only her beauty was ranked, and there was no information on her battle prowess. However, in terms of battle prowess, she was definitely no weaker than Feng Jixing. Who would have thought? Ling Han actually alerted the Imperial clan. It can't be helped. In front of the Imperial clan, no matter how supremely prodigious you are, you can only bow your head. Because it is an Imperial clan. Everyone felt rueful, and they all shook their heads. Whether it was Ling Han and Zhu Chengyun, the so-called number 1 person in Cauldron Forging tier, their reputations were ranked with the Imperial clan being excluded from consideration. Otherwise, to say nothing of number 1, it was impossible for them to even be in the top 10. However, those Imperial daughters and Imperial sons were too low-key, and had not thus, most of them only left behind a name, and no connected to Galaxy Network at one could see their true appearance. Hong! Hong! Hong Lin Lang unleashed his might, beating down on Ling Han. In fact, he channeled out the Imperial technique again, intending to completely dispose of Ling Han. However, faced with Ling Han's only celestial cauldron, unless his battle prowess overwhelmed him by 6 heavens and above, this kind of attack would be completely disintegrated by the only celestial cauldron, and would not cause the slightest bit of effect. However, Ling Han wasn't the type to take a beating passively. You use your ultimate move and I don't have any ultimate move? The only celestial cauldron came out. With a thought from Ling Han, the massive celestial cauldron in his mind appeared above his head. Instantly, a vast and mighty aura circulated, as if an emperor was out on a tour. It was majestic and dignified, causing reverence to rise up from the bottom of one's heart. The foundation-building tier cultivators and cauldron-forging tier cultivators who were watching the battle in the distance instantly fell to their knees. Only the core formation tier cultivators were exempted, though they were also a little terrified, as if they were blaspheming against a great emperor. Boom! The celestial cauldron's aura surged out. Lin Lang gave a muffled humph, and his palm was instantly unable to continue its descent. He paled in shock. He had ignited his imperial blood, and it was as if he were a great emperor from his youth, but now he was actually feeling fear. Even his legs were weak, and he wanted to kneel down. This was too exaggerated, wasn't it? He was the imperial son, and the blood flowing in his body was the imperial bloodline. Just how high and noble was that? How could he kneel down? Lin Lang forcefully suppressed it, but the imperial blood was cooling down on its own. His body had turned from 30 meters to 27 meters, and then from 27 meters to 24 meters in a short while. He had returned to his original form. He felt his head go numb. The burning of the imperial blood had not ended, and he had actually been forcefully beaten out of this state. This was practically like a dream. Ling Han cracked a smile. "It's my turn now, right?" Xiao, he pounced out and shot out a punch. Pong! Faced with Ling Han's might, Lin Lang was completely no match. He was sent flying with a single punch, and then fell heavily onto the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Ling Han charged forward, swinging his fists mercilessly. Pong, pong, pong! Lin Lang was thrashed, and could only curl his body into a ball, his hands protecting his vital points. Then, he could only allow Ling Han to attack him as he liked. Fuck! Seeing this scene, those who were watching the battle all spat out their tongues. No way. It had just been said that the Imperial clan was invincible. The so-called number 1 foundation-building tier cultivator, the number 1 cauldron-forging tier cultivator were all named, with the Imperial clans being excluded from consideration. Now, however, there was a member of the Imperial clan that was being pressed onto the ground and thrashed. How could they trust their own eyes? Heavens, was he going to rewrite history and create a legend? Pong, pong, pong. Ling Han was beating him up happily. Fuck. Who had he trifled with? He was really sick. Did he think he was an easy target to bully? See if I won't beat you to death, bastard. Ling Han's punches rained down, and Lin Lang could only take a beating. The Imperial son was being beaten like a punching bag? Everyone was speechless, and could only feel shock and admiration. Stop! The purple-robed man and the red-clothed woman finally came back to their senses, and they both charged towards Ling Han. Ling Han's eyes sharpened. 2 mere late-stage core formation tiers wanted to stop him. The celestial cauldron moved. The primal chaos divine thunder struck out at the purple-robed man, and a total of 10 divine beasts appeared from the celestial cauldron, attacking the red-clothed woman together. Ah! The purple-robed man immediately screamed in pain. How could he withstand the barrage of attacks above the 8th heaven of core formation tier? He was immediately severed into 2 halves by the lightning, and under the terrifying destructive power, his mind directly exploded. He did not have the ability to burn celestial core to extend his life at all. That red-clothed woman was not much better off either. Being ganged up on by 10 divine beasts, she could only barely defend herself, and she still wanted to save Lin Lang? Fuck! 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 Seeing this scene, everyone wanted to curse to vent the shock in their hearts. One cultivator at the late stage of the core formation tier had actually been insta-killed by Ling Han, Wuxia the other was trapped, and at the same time Ling Han was still beating up an Imperial son. No matter how they looked at it, this sounded like a pipe dream, right? However, this was happening right now. Ah! 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 Lin Lang roared in fury, yet could not get up no matter what. Without the support of the Imperial blood, how could he possibly be a match for Ling Han? There was still a long way for him to go. This was really a great humiliation. As a noble Imperial son, he had come all the way here. Initially, he was just acting high and mighty, But who would have thought that it would become him asking for his own humiliation? How could he endure this? How humiliating! This was far too humiliating. Furthermore, after this loss, could he still continue to sit on the position of imperial son? There were a great many people in the Lin clan that were eyeing his position, waiting for him to make a mistake and then replace him. He had not given anyone a chance all this while, but who would have thought that this time he had merely come out to strut around and had actually gotten such an end. When he returned, his status would be on the verge of collapse. Ling Han, that's about enough. An elite appeared. It was the 9 Mountains Venerate. He couldn't just watch Lin Lang be beaten to death, right? In truth, he could have stopped him long ago, but Lin Lang had come here to show off, and just because he had the backing of the imperial clan, he did not take the people from the Holy Land seriously. How could he not feel anger? Thus, he simply watched as Lin Lang was pummeled. Only when he realized that he was about to die did he step forward to stop him. Ling Han also knew that it was impossible for him to kill Lin Lang. Otherwise, the death of an imperial son would be a huge matter. Who knows, the saints from the Lin clan might charge over with the imperial weapon in hand. At that time, if the 9 Sons' Holy Land insisted on not handing him over, then the saint could control the imperial weapon, which was completely capable of erasing the 9 Sons' saint. Now, though the fact that the imperial son had been thrashed was also a big matter, this could only be blamed on Lin Lang's incompetence. Just look, in a battle of equal cultivation levels as the imperial son, you had still been defeated. How could you bring yourself to raise a fuss over this matter? Ling Han retracted his hand and stepped to the side, as if nothing had happened. Lin Lang stood up, his expression livid. However, he had already been beaten black and blue in the first place, so it was not very obvious. He stared at Ling Han, his eyes spitting fire. Actually, there was no need for the 9 Mountains Venerate to stop him. He had the substitution seal on him, and it also had a teleportation ability. As long as he sustained a fatal blow, he would appear millions and millions of miles away, and definitely wouldn't die. This was personally created by the saint of the Lin clan, so it was naturally amazing. Thus, he wasn't the slightest bit grateful to the 9 Mountains Venerate. His heart was filled with hatred for Ling Han. This was the first time in his life that he had lost in a battle of equal cultivation levels, and the imperial son should be invincible among his peers. He was outmatched, which only meant one thing. He was not strong enough, and was not qualified to become the imperial son. In other words, losing this battle was not just a matter of pride. It was even possible that he would be stripped of his status as the imperial son. This enmity would naturally become huge. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. Don't look so bitter and resentful. You were the one who provoked me on your own volition. Thus, no matter what the consequences are, you asked for it. The saying that one should have a taste of the consequences of one's own actions is referring to you. Lin Lang's hands clenched into fists, his body trembling slightly. But in the end, he did not say a single word. Instead, he directly strode away. Young master! The red-clothed woman finally survived the duration of the 10 divine beasts. She hurriedly grabbed the purple-robed man's corpse and followed closely behind Lin Lang. Brat, you're not too bad. 9 Mountains Venerate walked over and looked at Ling Han with admiration. Just ask around, whose disciple could thrash the imperial son? Only their 9 sons' holy land. In the past, the 9 sons saint had been hot-tempered. Regardless of whether you were an imperial son or imperial daughter, he would still beat you up. If it was not for the fact that the cultivation technique he cultivated was too ferocious, it was completely possible that he could become an ancestral king. The 9 sons saint did not leave behind his ultimate inheritance. However, his pride had been very well inherited. So what if they offended the imperial clan? In the past, the 9 sons saint had thrashed quite a number of imperial sons and imperial daughters, and hadn't he still started a domineering business? Meanwhile, Ling Han smiled embarrassedly and said, I seem to have been severely injured. I wonder if Senior has any natural treasures to bestow on this humble disciple. 9 Mountains Venerate couldn't help but grimace. This brat was truly shameless. Even he was rendered speechless. He nodded. To survive in this world, it has to be someone as shameless, two-faced, and cunning as you. This time, It was Ling Han's turn to wear a dark expression. Fuck. Was this a compliment? Don't worry. As long as you haven't killed the heir of the Imperial clan, the Holy Land will be able to bear any consequences for you. In the future, if you encounter any Imperial sons and Imperial daughters, just go ahead and beat them up boldly. Nine Mountains Venerate waved his hand, appearing very bold. Was there anyone that would educate their disciple like this? When everyone heard this, they did not know how to complain. All right. Ling Han nodded, as if he had only agreed to a small matter, and was completely unconcerned. What a pair of maniacs! Everyone dispersed, and only Lin Chi was left scowling miserably. He was in a tight spot. This time, Lin Lang had suffered a terrible defeat, and he would definitely be punished by the Lin clan. Furthermore, in the eyes of the Nine Sons' Holy Land, Lin Lang had been drawn here by him, so he would definitely be rejected and treated as an enemy by the disciples of the Holy Land. Actually, it was really not him who had invited Lin Lang here. He too felt very wronged. After this small interlude, Ling Han continued to cultivate, spending most of his time comprehending the fiery sun, subduing demon staff technique. At present, he had to learn as many high-level celestial techniques as possible. Then, when his cultivation level had reached a certain level, he would create his own celestial technique. All Imperial techniques were self-created. At most, they would only have some reference, but the main part would definitely be a great emperor's unique understanding of heaven and earth. The saint technique was profound, and Ling Han had cultivated in seclusion for 2 months in one go. However, he had only increased the might of this staff technique to 60%. He felt that he had reached a bottleneck. It was already very difficult for him to improve by just relying on this kind of closed-off method. Next, he would either experience enlightenment or go through a bloody battle, and that was what would allow him to have a breakthrough in this saint-level staff technique. He pushed open the doors and left. He decided to walk around in the Holy Land. In the day, he would still be enduring the demonic noise attack of prosperous heaven, and at night, he wanted to relax his mind. After circling around for a while, he suddenly saw a figure appear ahead of him. This person was very thin and lanky. At such a late hour, it was rare for someone else to be as idle and refined as him. Ling Han hurriedly chased after him. At a glance, this was an old man. He looked very, very old, but strangely, after taking a second look, he felt that he was very young. This kind of feeling was really strange and incredibly contradictory. However, this wasn't the strangest part. Instead, it was because this elder wasn't a physical being. He had encountered a ghost. Ling Han was greatly shocked. This was the Holy Land, and there was actually a Yin soul that could walk around. This Yin soul was a little too strong, wasn't it? He hurriedly put on a defensive stance. He had already prepared the 6 characters Bright King curse. Fuck! Is prosperous heaven an idiot? There's clearly a great Yin soul here, yet she, the holy daughter of the Buddhist race, actually didn't detect it at all. She has failed her duty. You can see me? This Yin soul suddenly said. Of course, what he emitted was not sound, but the fluctuation of divine sense. Ling Han was taken aback. This was a Yin soul, but he still had consciousness? This was a great monster. You really can see me? The Yin soul old man nodded, then counted with his fingers. Let me think. How many people have seen me? Ling Han originally wanted to attack, but when he heard the elder's words, he forcefully suppressed the urge to attack and asked, Senior, how should I address you? You live in my territory, yet you still ask who I am? The Yin soul elder said with a smile. He then stopped pinching his fingers and said, You're the 10th person to see me. Ling Han faltered for a moment, then almost jumped up. You are the 9 Sons Saint. You can be taught. The Yin soul elder said with a nod. No way, this was actually the founder of the 9 Sons Holy Land, the 9 Sons Saint, who had once rampaged through the galaxy and almost become an ancestral king. Impressive. He had clearly been dead for hundreds of millions of years, but the Yin soul still did not disperse. Brat, are you cursing me? The 9 Sons Saint asked. Ling Han spread out his hands. How could that be? How shameless of you. However, Only in this way would you be able to live like a fish in water in this kind of world. The 9 Suns Saint nodded. Did you make a deal with 9 Mountains Venerate to say the same words? Ling Han had never imagined that he would actually encounter the 9 Suns Saints in soul in the 9 Suns Holy Land. Moreover, the 9 Suns Saints in soul actually seemed to be conscious. What in soul was this? It was practically as if he hadn't died. Could elites reach this level? They were clearly dead, so why did it seem like they were still alive? Just look at Buddha Doga, he still had the might of a pseudo-emperor. Senior, do you have some unfulfilled wish? Ling Han asked. The 9 Suns Saint nodded. At that time, I had not been able to become a great emperor, so there was indeed a barrier in my heart. Hence, I deliberately went to snatch a top-grade mother tree, which could allow my soul to dissipate at an extremely slow pace. I would be able to see with my own eyes whether there would be any disciples among my descendants that could become emperors. In the end, AI, to say nothing of becoming an emperor, not even one has become a saint. Ling Han grumbled in his mind. Where the fuck do you get eyes from? And you even saw it with your own eyes. He was extremely shameless, and he immediately said, Senior, leave the matter of becoming an emperor or a saint to me. What supreme inheritance do you have? Why don't you teach it all to me? Becoming an emperor or a saint also requires a foundation. In the past few 100 million years, there have been a total of 10 super geniuses that have managed to catch a glimpse of me. But in terms of shamelessness, you are number 1, the 9 Suns Saint said. Even if that is what others think, you are the only one who could say it out loud. Ling Han was not the slightest bit embarrassed. This only means that I am not the slightest bit of a hypocrite. The 9 Suns Saint laughed loudly and said, all right, since you can see me, I'll naturally teach you the ultimate technique. So that was how it was. Ling Han sighed. If he had known earlier, he would have been more shy and made a good impression. Senior, how can I see you? He asked. The 9 Suns Saint had been dead for hundreds of millions of years. Yet in such a long time, including him, only 10 people had seen his own soul. What kind of conditions did this require? Moreover, he and the large black dog had searched the Holy Land many times before, and they hadn't seen this ghost at all. Could it be that he had gone to meet with some female ghost? Ling Han couldn't help but complain again. 9 cauldrons fused into one, and it has to be done with one's own power at that, the 9 Suns Saint said. Pooh! Ling Han immediately spluttered. No wonder he hadn't seen the soul of the 9 Suns Saint before. No wonder only a mere 10 people had seen this dead saint in these hundreds of millions of years. As it turned out, he had such high expectations. Though the imperial clans also had prodigies that had fused the 9 cauldrons into one, how many of them had done so on their own? Aside from me, who are the other 9 people? Ling Han asked. The 9 Suns Saint shook his head and said, they were all supremely talented individuals in the past. However, it's a shame that 7 of them died while they were still maturing. 2 of them were killed because they were too powerful in the early stage, and they also expended too much of their life force. As such, their cultivation stopped at the 4th pinnacle level. According to Senior, the saint technique that you created has not been lost at all? Ling Han asked. Naturally, the 9 Yang Saints said. However, I warned them not to reveal the secret, so they didn't tell anyone. Oh, that's right. What kind of secret technique did you create in your old age? Ling Han asked in curiosity. At that time, the 9 Suns Saint was a supreme elite. The 9 Suns Finger was invincible against all saints, and he could rival the great emperor, who had yet to attain Tao. And after he had failed to contest for the position of emperor, just how powerful would the secret technique he had created in his later years be? It would definitely surpass the 9 Suns Finger. God-slaying technique, the 9 Suns Saint said solemnly, and this name sounded domineering. At that time, I had touched a sliver of Emperor tier, but had not managed to cross over into that crucial step. The 9 Suns Saint was filled with regret. This is because what I have learnt all my life is too fierce. It is easy to break when it is too strong. Though I have never believed it, and thought that as long as one's strength reached the pinnacle, He would be able to ascend to the throne of emperor in any path, reality has proven. He shook his head and continued. Afterwards, I began to deduce the imperial technique, but after all, I had only touched the slightest bit. Thus, this god-slaying technique is only a semi-finished product. I hope that after I teach it to you, you will be able to complete it completely in future and make it a true imperial technique. Only a technique that you have created yourself is the strongest, the old geezer said solemnly. Ling Han nodded in agreement. It was not that the imperial technique was not strong, but rather that those who came later were all imitating it, and could not possibly obtain all the divine essence, and unleash 100% of its might. In the past, the Nine Sons Saint had practically no one in this world that could match him. Even the imperial son had to bow his head in submission, and that was because he had invented his own technique. If Ling Han could complete the god-slaying technique, it would be considered his own technique, and he would naturally be able to unleash its full might. Please teach me, senior, Ling Han said solemnly. The Nine Sons Saint did not keep Ling Han hanging. He immediately began to teach Ling Han the god-slaying technique. However, this god-slaying technique was really too profound, surpassing the level of saint technique, touching the boundary of the imperial technique. Thus, after this night, Ling Han had only learnt a sliver of it. The power of the sun is more exhausting on my soul power. Come back at night, the Nine Sons Saint said. Then he disappeared in a flash. A smile appeared on Ling Han's face. He was extremely pleased. Who would have thought that obtaining the ultimate inheritance of the Nine Sons Saint would actually require him to fuse the 9 cauldrons into one? This requirement was too high, too high. Only the super genius of the imperial clan could accomplish this. Furthermore, he had relied on the help of the imperial weapon. He had not achieved this with his own power at all. There was nothing that could be done. The Nine Sons Saint had almost become an emperor in the past, so his requirements were naturally very high. He didn't want to nurture another saint. Instead, he wanted to nurture a great emperor. However, Ling Han had also promised the Nine Sons Saint that he definitely wouldn't teach the god-slaying technique to anyone before he had completed the god-slaying technique. At times, though he was two-faced, and others would hate him to the core, he had never failed to keep a promise that he had made. Thus, the god-slaying technique would be a secret in his heart, and he would not reveal it even to the Empress and the others. After cultivating under the sun for half an hour, Ling Han returned. He took some time to teach the Empress and the others ultimate techniques such as the Fiery Sun subduing Demon Staff technique, the 18 Arhat Palm and others. This included the technique to suppress the celestial cauldrons so as to forge more celestial cauldrons. Thinking about it, it was clear that the more celestial cauldrons formed by cauldron forging tier, the stronger their battle prowess would be, and the deeper their foundations would be, and they would be able to rush to a higher level in future. With the help of the divine substance, the Empress and the others all formed 9 colored glass cauldrons, or celestial cauldrons of the same level. However, they were still a great distance away from the primitive celestial gate celestial cauldron, as if there was a gulf between them. In the past, if it was not for the celestial foundation that had been formed after leaping over the primitive celestial gate, he would not have had the chance to cultivate the corresponding celestial cauldron. This was naturally a great pity, and could only be compensated as much as possible. Unsurprisingly, Prosperous Heaven was once again promoting the teachings of Buddha in front of his abode. Her willpower could be considered tenacious. Don't say, if one listened closely, this Dharma of Buddhism was indeed filled with logic, causing one to involuntarily ponder, sinking deeper and deeper. The power of a great emperor was naturally extraordinary. Ling Han ignored her and focused on cultivating. At night, he went to find the Nine Sons Saint to learn the god-slaying technique. Day after day passed, and after 17 days, he finally grasped the basics of this secret technique. However, he had only mastered it and was still some distance away from using it. The Nine Sons Saint was already extremely stunned by this. This was because out of the 9 people from before, the fastest to reach Ling Han's level had also taken a whopping 2 months' time. He himself was a supreme prodigy, and had also seen countless prodigies. In fact, one of them had even become an emperor in the end, but compared with Ling Han's comprehension ability, he seemed to be slightly inferior. Though having a high comprehension ability did not mean that he would definitely be able to reach the peak stage, he had at least met one condition. Brat, it's extremely likely that you'll be able to fulfill my long-cherished wish, the Nine Sons Saint said with emotion. Ling Han's comprehension ability had moved him greatly. It was extremely likely that he was the #1 person in history. As long as he didn't die, it wouldn't be difficult for him to become a saint. However, becoming an emperor was not definite. There were too many things that were needed. Fortune, factors, era, none of them could be missing. Ling Han snickered. Senior, what other good stuff do you have? Pass it on to this junior as well. You see, since this junior is so outstanding, if I die prematurely in the process, your wish would be completely wasted. The Nine Sons Saint was rendered speechless for a moment. After a while, he finally said, Your comprehension ability is astonishingly high, but it still can't compare to the thickness of your skin. What kind of nonsense was he spouting? Ling Han simply smiled, not feeling the slightest bit apologetic. However, what the Nine Sons Saint left behind was only a yin soul. In fact, it did not have any offensive ability at all. It only had memories and could pass on his ultimate technique. Otherwise, if the heaven and earth had a spirit, it would have long since sent down divine lightning to shatter this yin soul. Brat, the fact that you were able to comprehend and master the comprehension of the god-slaying technique is already enough for you to do as you please. Don't be greedy and insatiable. You still haven't reached the saint tier yet, and are still far from being able to combine the strengths of various fields and create your own celestial technique. The Nine Sons Saint said seriously. Since that was the case, what else could he do? From now onwards, the Nine Sons Saint would not appear again for a very, very long time. Even if he had the top-grade mother tree to nurture his soul, it was still dispersing bit by bit. Thus, since he had found Ling Han in this generation, he planned to go into a long slumber and reappear in the next generation. If Ling Han did not become an emperor, he could still find his next target. He had done this for hundreds of millions of years. Meanwhile, Ling Han asked this old man some questions, such as what exactly happened 10 million years ago that actually caused the fortune of the North Heavenly Realm to drop to rock bottom, that it became far inferior to the other 3 heavenly realms. The Nine Sons Saint couldn't explain it either. He only knew that an earth-shattering battle had once taken place at the North Heavenly Realm. This battle was far too brutal. In fact, it even shattered the fortune of the North Heavenly Realm. There are a great many danger zones in this galaxy, and we definitely cannot go there. There would be great misfortune. In the end, this saint still gave a serious warning. He could tell that this disciple of the future generation was very bold. All right, I understand. As Ling Han nodded, he memorized those secret places. When his cultivation level was higher in the future, he naturally would go and take a look. The Lin clan's imperial son had been beaten, and this matter caused a great commotion on the Galaxy Network. A considerable number of imperial sons and imperial daughters all spoke on the Galaxy Network through others, saying that Lin Lang was only the weakest of the 3 imperial sons of the Lin clan. If he encountered Lin Xian or Lin Yun, then Ling Han would definitely have no option but to kneel. Lin Xian, the most outstanding imperial son of the Lin clan. Supposedly, he had awakened his ancestral bloodline, and had a little of the might that ancestral King Fire Clouds had once possessed. It was difficult to match him in the same cultivation level, and at present he was already on the level of Sect Master. Lin Yun was a true self-tier elite. Though he was slightly inferior to Lin Xian, he was even stronger than Lin Lang, who was at the same cultivation level as him. Lin Xian announced that although Lin Lang was no match for Ling Han because he wasn't skilled enough, the imperial clan was not to be trifled with. If he saw Ling Han, he wouldn't mind casually erasing him. When these words fell, everyone was worried for Ling Han. If Lin Xian really made a move, Ling Han's only fate would definitely be death. Bastard, if you anger me, I'll use the heavenly Tao flame to burn you to death. Ling Han thought to himself. If he was really angered, who would be afraid of whom? Right at this moment, a piece of news spread out, once again alerting the galaxy, and also causing the hearts of the young prodigies to beat wildly. The Donglin Imperial clan sent out an invitation, inviting all the prodigies of the world to participate in the Dao tournament. Being able to participate in this kind of gathering was a kind of approval. Furthermore, sparring and discussing Dao with a top prodigy would definitely be extremely helpful in improving one's strength. More importantly, the imperial daughter of the Donglin clan also wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to choose a husband and cultivate the supreme ultimate technique, heavenly brilliance technique, with her. Ayo, ayo, ayo. The large black dog scuttled over. Little Han, let's set out quickly and marry the imperial daughter. You don't even know what she looks like, and you want to marry her? Ling Han asked with a smile. Hee, you're really too ignorant and ill-informed. Could it be that you don't know that this imperial daughter is the third most beautiful woman on the exquisite beauty leaderboard? The large black dog called out. And this is only because she only showed her face occasionally and did not leave behind any pictures. It's said that those who have seen her all think that she is the #1 beauty in the world. Oh, Ling Han nodded, but was not the slightest bit moved. Little Han, imperial technique, imperial technique. When the large black dog saw that Ling Han was completely unmoved, he hurriedly continued. Just think, as long as you marry this Chi Menghan, you would be the son-in-law of the imperial clan. Whatever imperial technique there is, you can learn as you like. Sure, you can go and marry her. Even if you take human form, you still look fine. In future, you can just teach me, Ling Han said. He did not want to use a honey trap. Hey, there is a natural gulf between Grandpa Dog and her. I only like the beauties of the dog race. The large black dog immediately protested. Meanwhile, the pervert pig rolled his eyes. These two shameless guys. Did they really think that they would be able to marry the imperial daughter if they went? However, as he imagined how the third most beautiful woman in the world would be beautiful, the pervert pig couldn't help but gape and drool. Sigh, little Han, it's better for you to go. The large black dog egged him on. Grandpa Dog is also mighty and extraordinary, but I haven't cultivated 10 cauldrons or fusion cauldron yet, after all. Thus, your chances are higher. It was rare to see the large black dog act so modest. Ling Han chuckled, but still didn't agree. This matter was set aside for the moment, but 3 days later, there was further news. As it turned out, though the Donglin imperial clan had sent out invitations widely, they had left out only the North Heavenly Realm. The prodigies from the East, South, and West Heavenly Realm had all begun getting invitations, but the North Heavenly Realm was an exception. None of them received an invitation. Afterwards, the Donglin Imperial Clan even made a special clarification on the Galaxy Network, saying that the North Heavenly Realm's fortune had declined, and someone from there attaining even Saint Tier would be as difficult as ascending the heavens, so how could he be qualified to participate in such a gathering of prodigies? Hence, they did not even bother to send out an invitation to avoid wasting time. When the news spread out, all of the North Heavenly Realm was in an uproar. Fuck. This was looking down on them too much, wasn't it? That's right. The North Heavenly Realm had indeed been weaker all this time. But was it that bad, that they disdained from even issuing them an invitation? When they found out about this, there was naturally another round of heated discussions on the Galaxy Network. The elites from the Eastern, Southern, and Western Heavenly Realms all expressed that the Donglin Imperial Clan had done a good job. Although a powerful guy had appeared in the North Heavenly Realm, this could not change the present state of its weakness. Furthermore, could one person be capable of changing a whole heavenly realm? No, unless he was a great emperor. Just obediently stay in the North Heavenly Realm. Don't come out and embarrass yourself. Weaklings need to have self-awareness. Hee, when has it ever been the turn of the North Heavenly Realm's people to call themselves prodigies? What a joke. Under the barrage of mockery, the North Heavenly Realm elites were naturally filled with anger. However, this was indeed the case, so what could they say? Moreover, this bomb had been thrown by the Donglin Imperial Clan, so who dared to question an Imperial Clan? When Ling Han found out, he came to a decision. He wanted to go to the Donglin Imperial Clan. If they didn't send him an invitation, he would go on his own and win a spot. At that time, he would win first place in the prodigy gathering. He would flee after learning the Imperial technique, and also slap the Donglin Imperial Clan in the face. Of course, he definitely couldn't use his original appearance. It didn't matter. He had the soul-forming technique, so after changing his appearance and soul fluctuation, he would have nothing to do with him in the future. Little Han, have you decided to go? When the large black dog found out, he immediately jumped up and down, appearing to be extremely excited. That's right. Grandpa Dog also thinks that they have gone too far. Is there any need to mock others like this? At first, Ling Han had planned to set out alone. That way, he would not leave behind any clues. But the large black dog insisted on going with him. Ling Han thought for a moment and decided to bring it along with him. The large black dog's cultivation level wasn't low, and he was already at the 6 cauldrons. Apart from the demonic monkey fists, he had also mastered a considerable number of venerate tier-level techniques and saint techniques. He could be considered a powerful helper. Sure, but you have to disguise yourself. No problem. When it comes to disguise, Grandpa Dog is best at it. The 2 troublemakers moved out. Since the Donglin Imperial clan didn't send invitations to the North Heavenly Realm, the first thing they had to do was leave the North Heavenly Realm and head to the East Heavenly Realm or the West Heavenly Realm. Territory-wise, their journey to the Western Heaven Realm was slightly closer. Ling Han went to pay a visit to 9 Mountains Venerate and said that he wanted to ask for his help to send them to the West Heavenly Realm. If a Venerate tier elite was willing to make a move and directly tear a rip into space to travel, then they would probably be able to reach the West Heavenly Realm in 10 days at most. 9 Mountains Venerate considered for a moment before asking, "Are you going to the Donglin Imperial clan?" "Yes." Ling Han didn't hide anything and said, "However, I'll conceal my identity so that no one can see through me." As he spoke, he had already channeled the soul-forming technique, and the fluctuation of his soul immediately underwent a slight change. 9 Mountains Venerate was astonished. He then nodded and said, "It's indeed amazing. However, it might be a bit difficult to fool a saint." "I will be careful," Ling Han said. 9 Mountains Venerate was silent for a moment before saying, "Fine. I'll send you to the Western Heaven Realm." Humph, it is not like no ancestral kings or powerful saints have ever walked out of the North Heavenly Realm. We have only been silent for a while, and they actually dare to look down on us so much. Brat, go and make a good fuss. Ling Han couldn't help but think, this guy is actually also hot-tempered. 9 Mountains Venerate was not the slightest bit sloppy in his actions. After Ling Han called the large black dog over, he immediately grabbed the human and dog, tore a rip into space, and headed towards the West Heavenly Realm. There was no need for them to travel through transfer formations one after another, and there was no need for them to take a detour at all, so it was naturally extremely time-saving. In just 10 days, they had arrived at the West Heavenly Realm. And this was still because Ling Han and the large black dog's physiques were relatively weak. During this period, they would have to stop to rest and recover. If it was the 9 Mountains Venerate alone, then he would be able to reach here in 5 days at most. Be careful and act according to the circumstances, 9 Mountains Venerate said to Ling Han. "Thank you, Senior," Ling Han said with a bow. 9 Mountains Venerate tore a rip into space and left, leaving only Ling Han and the large black dog behind. "Little Han, what do we do next?" the large black dog asked. "Change your appearance first," Ling Han said. "In future, others only need to investigate where there is a perverted large black dog, and they would be able to immediately find Nine Suns' holy land." "Woof! Grandpa Dog is so brilliant and mighty, so how is he perverted?" the large black dog said in defiance. However, his appearance definitely had to be changed. The large black dog transformed into a black bull, but that vulgar air couldn't be erased no matter what it transformed into. Ling Han sighed, but whatever, as long as it was not related to the image of a dog. He also changed his appearance. The soul-forming technique was activated, and the wave of his soul also underwent a slight change. "From now onwards, my name is Ding Yi," he said, stroking his chin. "Then Grandpa Dog." "No, Grandpa Bull's name is Ding Air," the large black dog immediately said. In any case, it was only a pseudonym, so there was no need for him to have a name with a noble air. Thus, Ling Han did not consider it seriously. "What do we do now?" the large black dog asked. Naturally, to get a name for ourselves. And only then would we be able to gain the attention of the Donglin Holy Land and obtain an invitation. The large black dog connected to the galaxy network and grinned. A prodigy from the West Heavenly Realm just happened to come here. So let's go beat him up. Who is it? Ling Han asked. Chun Dong. The large black dog said. Ranked in the 300s on the galaxy network. So low. Ling Han frowned. Don't look down on him. Even among the cauldron forging tier elites of the Western Heavenly Realm, he can rank in the 100s. The large black dog said. Now, those who are ranked higher have already received invitations from the Donglin Imperial clan. Thus, those who haven't received invitations and are ranked higher can no longer sit still, wanting to prove through actual battle that they are worthy of being invited by the Donglin Imperial clan. All right, then we'll knock down this Chundong first, Ling Han said with a smile. Let Grandpa Dog do it. No, Grandpa Bull do it. The large black dog seemed to be in high spirits. Ling Han pondered for a moment before saying, if he is ranked in the top 400 of the galaxy network, he is probably 6 cauldrons. You do indeed have a chance of winning. That's for sure. Grandpa Bull has cultivated the Saint technique. The large black dog summoned a black staff, which he slammed onto the ground. From now onwards, Grandpa Bull is the Herculean Bull Demon King. Ding air. Let's go. Ling Han and the large black dog set off. The two of them soon arrived at a city, and after some investigation, they found out that Chindong was hosting a tournament at the summit of the Long Mountains. In truth, Chindong's thoughts were more or less the same as Ling Han and the large black dog. He wanted to show off his strength through battle so that he could gain the notice of the Donglin Imperial clan, so they would send him an invitation. The Long Mountains was the most famous place on this planet, because no saint had ever appeared here, and there was a venerate tier cultivator that attempted to break through to Saint Tier in the Long Mountains. Though he ultimately failed and died, this was considered a holy land by the people of this planet. Now, there was still a powerful pressure enshrouding this place. Those whose willpower was not strong enough would not be qualified to ascend the mountain at all, what more reach the summit. Thus, a great many prodigies liked to use the Long Mountains as a place for sparring, so that it would appear grand and noble. Ling Han and the large black dog arrived at the foot of the mountain and gazed at the summit. 817 Ling Han and the large black dog arrived at the foot of the mountain and gazed at the summit. So tall. The large black dog sighed ruefully. Stop pretending to be profound. Let's go. Ling Han took the lead, clasping his hands behind his back, every step very leisurely. Wait for Grandpa Bull, the large black dog shouted, and hurriedly followed after him. One of them was 10 cauldrons fused into one, while the other had also formed 6 cauldrons. Walking here was completely effortless on their part, and the so-called pressure could be considered ordinary. In less than 10 minutes they had arrived at the summit, and saw that there were indeed a great many people here. They were standing in a circle around the platform in the center, and on the platform there were presently 2 people sparring. This platform was extremely sturdy. In the past, it had been the place where that venerate had comprehended the Tao of Saint Tier. Thus, though he had failed in his attempt to break through to Saint Tier, there was still a sliver of Tao left behind, which strengthened this platform. It was definitely not something that the core formation tier or even the true self tier could shatter. When Ling Han and the large black dog arrived, the battle on the platform was also drawing to a close. A person was sent flying and fell off the platform. Lost again. Sigh as expected of Chindong. His galaxy's network ranking of over 300 isn't just for show. As I see it, his battle prowess should be more than 300 by now. It is very possible that it has reached more than 200, or even more than 100 in fact. Everyone was rueful, and then their expressions were filled with admiration. In truth, as long as one could squeeze into the top 10,000 of the galaxy network, they could be considered one of the top prodigies in any galaxy. Thus, Chundong's ranking was as high as 300, so he was naturally chillingly strong. Ling Han looked towards the platform, and saw that the only man standing proudly looked to be about 24 or 25 years old. He had a sturdy build, and his hair was slightly golden. His eyes were very special, and his pupils were yellow in color. "This guy doesn't seem to be a human," the large black dog said softly. "He really doesn't look like it," Ling Han said with a nod. "Haha. The two of you are really too ignorant and ill-informed. Could it be that you don't know that Chen Dong is a prodigy of the Ice Wolf tribe?" Someone beside them heard them, and immediately said proudly to them, as if he was introducing his son. 818. Sure enough, he wasn't a human. Ling Han sighed. The large black dog also sighed. Although it wasn't a human, it had developed intelligence after all, so it couldn't be treated as meat. It was a pity. The person beside him was baffled. Why was he sighing? "Is there anyone else who would like to spar with me?" Chen Dong asked from the stage. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his demeanor elegant. He had indeed lived up to his reputation as a young prodigy. Everyone shook their heads. This was far from enough. Previously, they had only heard of Chen Dong's strength, and thought that no matter how strong he was, he would not be able to surpass them by much. But after the actual battle, they finally knew just how wide the gap was. "Chen Dong, let me spar with you." Right at this moment, a voice suddenly rang out. "Shua!" Everyone looked towards the source of the sound, and saw that the speaker was actually a sturdy black bull. The fur all over its body was as smooth as satin, and it looked extremely handsome. However, this black bull's behind was actually covered with a pair of iron underwear. This instantly destroyed its handsome aura completely, turning it completely into a pervert. Everyone was astounded. He could even open his mouth and speak like this, so it was obvious that this was not a wild beast, but rather a demonic beast. Since it was a demonic beast, it should have taken human form after advancing into celestial path. Everyone knew that the form of a human was the most suitable for cultivation. Looking at history, the great emperors that the demon race had produced were also human forms. This black bull was really unique. Chen Dong frowned. He was unafraid of challenges. In fact, he hoped to encounter elites. The stronger they were, the better. That was because only by defeating this kind of elite would his impact be heavy enough, winning him a ticket to the Donglin Imperial clan. However, it would be too demeaning for him to spar with such a large black bull that was exuding a perverse aura all over its body. However, with a leap, the large black dog arrived on the platform. It stood up on its hind legs, then peered down at its surroundings, and said ruefully, "Sigh. Being invincible is really lonely. Holy fuck." Everyone was complaining endlessly. "You haven't even fucking started fighting, and you are already boasting that you are invincible and lonely. How could there be such a shameless purse bull? Humph, this must be a hybrid bull. Our Azure Sky Black Demon Bull tribe does not recognize it as a member of our tribe." On the sidelines, a large man with horns on his head declared, hurriedly drawing a dividing line between himself and the large black dog. This caused everyone to roar with laughter. He was actually despised by his own clansmen. This was too much of a failure. The large black dog snickered, and with a low growl, he had already charged towards Chen Dong. The moment they clashed, Chen Dong's expression changed drastically, and everyone was gritting their teeth. This was because the large black dog's attacks were far too despicable. He focused on attacking below the waist, with Chen Dong's crotch as his main target. Meanwhile, his behind was naturally also a target of special attention. Could be said that he was extremely despicable. They were really dumbfounded. This large black ox clearly looked sturdy and bold, but why was it so vulgar the moment it attacked? One couldn't judge a book by its cover, and it was the same to be said for a bull. Chen Dong was beside himself with rage, and he roared, "You're seeking death!" Boom! He unleashed a devastating aura as he unleashed his full power. He was going to dispose of the large black dog as quickly as possible. Although the large black dog hadn't fought many times since arriving in this world, he had fought all the way to the heavenly venerable tier in the Genesis world, so his battle experience was naturally impressive. From the very beginning, it was vulgar and obscene. This was indeed in line with its style, but part of it was also deliberately trying to anger Chen Dong. In a state of rage, the might of the attack would indeed increase accordingly, but it would also affect judgment and reveal flaws. Sure enough, Chen Dong's attacks were extremely domineering. Each of his attacks possessed astonishing power, yet his accuracy was still below par. The large black dog easily dodged his attacks. Repetitively attacking in this way, he was ultimately exhausted. Once Chun Dong's burst of power had passed, his battle prowess clearly declined. If Grandpa Bull doesn't show his might, do you think I am a sick cat? The large black dog began to launch a powerful counterattack. It was really very strong. In truth, those that had come out of Genesis world were all incredibly prodigious beings. After all, they had fought their way out of millions and millions of living beings. So how extraordinary was it to be able to reach the heavenly venerable tier? Though the large black dog had leaped over the golden celestial gate, with the help of the divine substance, it had now formed the obsidian celestial cauldron. Its grade was completely not inferior to the 9-colored glass cauldron. Thus, with both of them being 6 cauldrons, its strength was actually superior to Chun Dong's. However, as a screw-over, if he could screw his opponent over, why did he have to do it head-on? Thus, the large black dog would first exhaust Chun Dong's explosive power before launching a counterattack. This would naturally be even more effective. The pitiful Chun Dong was instantly suppressed by the large black dog after losing this opportunity. He was completely unable to counterattack. Look at Grandpa Bull's Strength Demon Ox Palm, Black Horn Charge, Divine Bull's Tail Swing. The large black dog continued to bark as he fought. He wasn't simply reciting the names of his techniques, and he didn't stop cursing either. He was already cursing all the way from Chun Dong's father to his 7th ancestor. Chun Dong was infuriated upon hearing this. In fact, he was even more infuriated than when the large black dog pressed him to the ground and pummeled him. Everyone was also rendered speechless. They could see very clearly that this black bull's battle prowess was really not weak. It was not inferior to Chun Dong at all. In fact, it had even surpassed him. Since he was so awesome, why didn't he defeat Chun Dong in an open and above-board manner? You are so mean, coming up first to anger him, so that he would waste his ultimate move, and then spouting vulgarities, causing him to continue to be fuming with anger, and his attacks to become even more chaotic. This was completely an unjust victory. If he won like this, who would recognize his victory? Yet the large black dog was completely unconcerned. All he cared about was the result. It was fine as long as he won. As for the rest, what did it have to do with him? Last move, Demonic Bull Charge. Pong! The large black dog charged over and rammed its horns into Chun Dong, instantly sending him flying. However, the large black dog also rubbed his head, feeling a slight pain. Couldn't be helped. Its horns were only manifestations, and it wasn't a real bull. Could its horns compare to a spirit tool of the same level? AI. Really too weak, too weak. The large black dog shook its large black bull hooves. It can't be helped. Us brothers are men who are going to trample that Ling Han from the north heavenly realm. Even if the large black dog won, everyone felt an urge to rush up and give him a thrashing. Why was this guy so detestable? But from what this black bull had said, it actually still wanted to challenge Ling Han. Though I also look down on the weaklings of the north heavenly realm, Ling Han is indeed strong, defeating even an imperial son. Black Bull, you are still 1,000,000 miles away from Ling Han. Hurry up and scram. You are not welcome here, everyone said. The large black dog stood on the platform with his hands clasped behind his back, showing off endlessly. Sigh. Since ancient times, elites have all been lonely. How could you mortals know of Grandpa Bull's invincible heart? Fuck. Everyone was speechless. Once this person was thick-skinned to the point of being shameless, what else was there to say? No one has come out to battle yet? The large black dog started to attract animosity everywhere. Grandpa Bull disdains from bullying you guys, so just let my little brother move. Whoever can take 10 moves from him will be considered as Grandpa Bull's loss. Pointed at Ling Han. Shua. Instantly, a great many eyes turned towards Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly and leaped onto the platform, his expression proud. This Ding Yi's persona was arrogant and domineering, so he could be as arrogant as he liked. Immediately, some were dissatisfied and jumped onto the stage to issue a challenge. They were no match for this large black bull, so could it be that this person could also be so awesome? Ling Han made a tapping motion with his finger. Pong! The person was sent flying. The first battle was won. Everyone shuddered upon seeing this. This person was far too powerful. One after another, more people stepped forward to challenge Ling Han. However, they were all defeated by Ling Han with a single strike. No one could withstand a second strike. The truth was indeed so. Aside from Origin, Myriad Dao, Imperial Sons or Imperial Daughters, who else in Cauldron Forging tier could withstand a single move from Ling Han? After Ling Han defeated 13 people in a row, no one dared to challenge him again. Anyone could tell that though this person did not have as bad a mouth as the large black dog, but his abilities were not the slightest bit inferior, and he was overwhelmingly strong. Pong! A figure landed on the platform. It was none other than Qindong. He had already recovered. Furthermore, he also clearly realized that he had been too rash previously, and had been tricked by the large black dog's psychological tactic. Since he knew this, he would definitely not fall for it again if they battled again. "Step aside," he said coldly to Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly, and gave Chun Dongjian the middle finger. Originally, with one person and one bull, the large black bull insulting them, and Ling Han being so arrogant and domineering, no one would believe they were brothers. But when they saw Ling Han raising his middle finger, everyone felt a sense of familiarity. Fuck, the style was similar. "You're seeking death," Qindong roared. However, he immediately composed himself and suppressed his anger. He didn't want to make the same mistake again. As a prodigy, he still had some self-control. "You brothers are indeed the same type of people," he said through gritted teeth. "I will teach you a good lesson." Xiao, his figure darted out, and charged towards Ling Han. This pounce was extraordinarily fast, like a bolt of lightning. Ling Han smiled faintly. How could this kind of speed escape his eyes? He casually raised his fist, placing it in front of him. Then, everyone saw an incredibly strange scene. Qindong seemed to be deliberately making things difficult for himself, and crashed his face into Ling Han's fist. Pong! There was a loud bang, and this collision was solid. Then, Qindong's whole person was seen to be sent flying, drawing out an arc in the air, and falling onto the platform. Everyone was surprised. It was a coincidence? How was this possible? It could only be that Ling Han had grasped the trajectory of Qindong's attack in advance, and had then gotten into position, waiting for Qindong himself to crash headfirst into him. Furthermore, just how terrifying was Ling Han's power, to be able to use stillness to restrain movement and send Qindong flying backwards? Strong. So strong. This is what a good son of our bull tribe should be like. The cultivator from the bull tribe from before immediately cheered loudly. This victory was too beautiful. He did not look at all like the large black dog that kept screwing over his opponent. Ling Han's expression involuntarily darkened. "I'm a human." That bull tribe cultivator's mouth was half gaping, his face filled with astonishment. "Aren't you two brothers?" "Brother, you can't forget your roots as a bull," he said with a serious expression. "You can't forget our roots just because you've taken human form." Ling Han glanced at this large man from the bull tribe, feeling a sense of helplessness. This was a bastard. He had already told him that he was not a member of the bull tribe, so why did he have to acknowledge him as family? "I'm sworn brothers with this black bull. I'm a pure human," Ling Han emphasized again. "Dare I ask your name?" someone asked. This person was far too powerful, and he had easily defeated Qindong. "Ding Yi," Ling Han replied calmly. "Grandpa Bull's name is Ding Er." The large black dog interrupted. When the large man from the bull tribe heard this, he wanted to open his mouth to speak again. See, one was called Ding Yi and the other was called Ding Er. How could they not be blood brothers? However, someone beside him immediately covered his mouth. Didn't he see that Ling Han was already angered? Was he courting death? I have never heard the names of these two brothers Ding before," another person said. The large black dog hurriedly said, "Previously, us brothers have been cultivating in the depths of the mountains, and have just come out. In the end, we heard that Ling Han person from the north heavenly realm actually beat you guys to the point that you can't even raise your heads. Hence, we decided to seek out that guy for a spar, so that he will know that there are still elites in the West Heavenly Realm. Everyone shook their heads. Although Ling Han and the large black dog were both very strong, the large black dog's strength was only around the ranks of 100 or so on Galaxy Network, while Ling Han's strength was only in the top 50. Compared to that monster from the North Heavenly Realm, the gap was not just a little bit. There was no hope. That was a monster that had even defeated an Imperial Sun. Let's go. Ling Han beckoned the large black dog over. This time he only showed himself, announcing the appearance of Ding Yi and Ding Air, making up a story about their origins. In the future, he would find even stronger people to fight a few more rounds with, and naturally, he would be able to win the notice of the Donglin Imperial clan. He would then be able to obtain an invitation. The large man from the Bull tribe still wanted to catch up to them and worm his way into being friends with them, but Ling Han and the large black dog were walking very quickly, and he could not catch up to them. Ling Han and the large black dog stayed here for 2 days, scouting everywhere for information. They were really lucky because another cauldron forging tier prodigy had come. His name was Zhou Yun, and he was ranked 84th on the Galaxy Network. Moreover, he had come here for a treasure called Feng Lin Stone. What was the use of this? In the early stage of core formation tier, hadn't one melted down the celestial cauldrons as fertilizer to nurture the celestial core? Feng Lin Stone was a treasure that could speed up the rate of refining. Thus, when the news of the Feng Lin Stone spread out, those cauldron forging tier cultivators that were close to breaking through to the core formation tier, as well as those martial artists that were already in the early stage of the core formation tier, all moved upon hearing the news, wanting to snatch this kind of precious stone. Ling Han's heart also throbbed wildly. In the early stage of core formation tier, there were also alchemical pills that could increase the speed of cultivation, but the main ingredient was the Feng Lin Stone. Thus, if he could obtain the Feng Lin Stone, he would be able to unleash 200% or even 300% of the value of this precious material. Little Han, let's go, the large black dog immediately said. He knew that Ling Han definitely wouldn't miss such a good opportunity. Ling Han laughed loudly. Let's go. The man and dog set out, heading towards the sleeping dragon forest. It was said that in the ancient times, the descendant of a true dragon had slumbered here, so dragon-shaped trees grew everywhere in the whole forest. The trunk of this kind of tree looked very much like a true dragon that was so furious that it soared into the skies. The news of the Feng Lin Stone had come from here. It was said that someone had accidentally entered the lair of a wild beast and picked up a fragment of the Feng Lin Stone. Thus, he deduced that there was another large Feng Lin Stone in the lair of that wild beast. At present, there were a great many people gathered in this forest, and there was no shortage of cauldron forging tiers that were ranked highly in the Galaxy Network. Though they had not yet advanced into the core formation tier, no one would mind preparing some treasures for themselves, right? Ling Han strolled slowly, his eyes slightly vacant, because his mind was completely immersed in comprehending the god-slaying technique. This could be seen as a pseudo-emperor technique, which was filled with the amazing ideas of the Nine Suns Saint. Every time Ling Han comprehended a bit more of it, he would be filled with praise. No wonder the Nine Suns Saint had such a high reputation. If he were ranked in the battle prowess leaderboard of the strongest saints in history, he would definitely be able to rank in the top 10. As for what ranking he would be ranked in, that was uncertain. After all, there would always be talented people appearing in the future generations. Previously, Ling Han had only swallowed it in a hurry and memorized this celestial technique, but he was still a little bit away from channeling it. He wasn't in battle mode now, so he could completely multitask and deduce the celestial technique with all his might. He only had to instinctively follow the large black dog's steps. They walked for a while and saw a group of people appear in front of them. The majority of them were men, but the person they surrounded was a woman. She was astonishingly beautiful, but did not appear weak in the slightest. She was filled with heroic spirit, as if she was a goddess of war. Someone's here again. Call them in as well. A few people asked and soon won the agreement of the others. A man walked over and asked Ling Han, "Brother, are you cultivating the art of beast taming?" Scram! The large black dog immediately stood up on his hind legs and sent that person flying with a kick. "Don't you have eyes? Can't you see that Grandpa Bull is the master here?" that this is Grandpa Bull's human pet. At present, Ling Han was in a deep level of seclusion. If it was not for the threat to his life, he would stay muddle-headed like this. Thus, the large black dog naturally wanted to take this opportunity to mess around with Ling Han. The person who had been sent flying clutched his chest and cried out in pain, yet dared not speak out in anger. This world revered martial arts. The large black dog's attack made him realize that there was a huge gap in strength between the two of them, so he naturally didn't dare to seek his own suffering. Big brother! An enthusiastic voice rang out, and a large man with horns on his head rushed out, stretching out his arms to embrace Ling Han. The large black dog smiled happily and said, "This brother of mine has gone mad from cultivation. Aside from Grandpa Bull, no one can approach him at all. Otherwise, he would instinctively attack you out of self-preservation. 825, Grandpa Bull advises you to stop immediately." The large black dog crossed his arms over his chest. The large man from the bull tribe naturally would not listen, and continued to embrace him. Then he saw a fist smash towards him. It was clearly not very fast, but it was as if he had been possessed. He did not have any intention of resistance at all. Pong, he was sent flying with a single punch. The large black dog smiled happily and said, "This brother of mine has gone mad from cultivation. Aside from Grandpa Bull, no one can approach him at all. Otherwise, he would instinctively attack you out of self-preservation." So the two of you are the newly risen Ding Yi and Ding Er? Someone exclaimed in surprise. Ding Yi and Ding Er had risen to fame recently. One had defeated Qindong, while the other had crushed him. Moreover, the two of them had even shouted a resounding slogan of defeating Ling Han. Even the valiant beauty turned her gaze over, a hint of surprise on her face, as if she could not believe that this foolish-looking man in front of her had defeated a super genius like Qindong with a single punch. "Brother, have you gone mad?" That large man from the bull tribe ran back and instantly wailed, "The heavens are blind. It was not easy for our bull tribe to produce a supreme prodigy, but I had never thought that he would have fallen to this extent." Everyone couldn't help but wear strange expressions. Previously, hadn't Ding Yi said that he had only become sworn brothers with Ding Er? They weren't blood brothers and he was a pure human. You are really too shameless, aren't you, just to ride on his popularity? The soldierly beauty strode over and said, "I know medicinal arts. I will take a look at him." She stretched out a hand to touch Ling Han's forehead. Out of instinct, Ling Han immediately launched a counterattack. He delivered a palm strike right at the chest of the soldierly beauty. The soldierly beauty immediately humphed, and the palm she stretched out changed to a slash, striking out at Ling Han's pulse. The palm landed, and Ling Han's right arm instantly sank. However, his fingertips still grazed the soldierly beauty's chest. All of a sudden, a dead silence fell. "I say, brother, you've already gone mad, but your flirtatious nature hasn't changed at all." The large black dog immediately clicked his tongue in amazement. It was obvious that he was deliberately trying to attract animosity. However, Ling Han didn't know this at all. He instinctively counterattacked, and didn't realize at all whether his enemy was male or female. Hearing these words, everyone's expressions turned from shock to fury. This was too much to actually dare make a move on their goddess. Fuck, are you faking it and deliberately taking advantage of her? However, their goddess had already advanced into the core formation tier, so how could a cauldron forging tier take advantage of her? Hiss, this guy was very strong. This valiant beauty was called Hiyafu. Though she had not managed to enter into the exquisite leaderboard, she was publicly acknowledged as the #1 beauty on this planet. Furthermore, she had already advanced into the core formation tier, so her natural talent in martial arts was astonishing. At first, she was shocked, because the aura that Ling Han was exuding was clearly only the cauldron forging tier, but his power was incredibly strong, practically not inferior to hers. However, very quickly, a strong feeling of shame and anger rose up in her. Someone had actually assaulted her breasts. Though he had only grazed her and there was still a layer of clothes, she was still as pure, so how could she allow herself to be tarnished like this? With a soft exclamation, she moved again. This time, it wasn't for Ling Han's inspection. Instead, it was an attack filled with fury, her offensive fierce. Ling Han instinctively moved to parry. At present, he did not have any offensive ability at all, but his basic power had reached third heaven. Even if he did not go all out, he was not the slightest bit inferior to Hiyafu. Pong! 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 The two of them clashed endlessly. Hiyafu's snow-white slender figure was presently even tougher than divine metal. She delivered palm strikes, her might boundless. However, no matter how she attacked, she was still unable to penetrate Ling Han's defenses. In truth, to say nothing of the fact that she was only in the early stage of the core formation tier, her original power was only second heaven. Even if her power surpassed Ling Han's by a few heavens, it would be useless. That was because Ling Han still had the only celestial cauldron that could absorb all power attacks within 6 heavens, and could not wound Ling Han at all. Hiyafu continued to attack. She had already realized that Ling Han wasn't deliberately taking advantage of her. Instead, he had truly fallen into a dazed state. However, it was in this state that he instinctively moved to parry, not losing at all. This guy's strength was too shocking, wasn't it? A cauldron forging tier cultivator could actually be this strong? After fighting for a while, Hiyafu finally stopped on her own volition. There was no point in continuing the battle. She was completely unable to suppress Ling Han. Sister-in-law, can we set out now? The large black dog asked. He appeared to be very serious, but he was actually acting cheeky. Hiyafu was furious, and immediately delivered a palm strike at it. The large black dog wasn't Ling Han. Even if Hiyafu didn't use her full power, how could he withstand the attack of a core formation tier cultivator? Pong! The large black dog instantly started to roll around on the ground. It only came to a stop after rolling over a dozen times. It had finally gotten a taste of the evil consequences of having a cheap mouth. Come, let's go to the lair of the wild beast. Hiyafu turned around and said to everyone. Everyone set out, heading towards the lair of the wild beast. Someone knew the location and led the way ahead. Oh, that's right. What kind of ferocious beast is that? How could the large black dog bear to remain silent for a moment? He immediately approached and asked everyone. A great beast at the late stage of core formation tier, someone said. We only have 4 core formation tier elites here, and only one of them has reached the middle stage of the core formation tier. Thus, we have to rely on the advantage of numbers to kill this great beast. Don't worry. It's said that Feng Lin Stone is very big, and there's enough for us to share. Was that really the case? The large black dog grumbled. He had always been devious, screwing people over without a care. Thus, whenever he encountered something, he would first consider if there was any conspiracy. Couldn't be helped. It was purely his nature. However, everyone was in high spirits, and thought that if they worked together, it would be enough to kill a late-stage core formation tier great beast. There would be absolutely no problem. I hope so, the large black dog said softly. When he recalled that he still had Ling Han by his side, he felt much more at ease. That was because he knew Ling Han's trump card. If he couldn't, there was still the heavenly Tao flames, and even Venerate tier elites would have to run if they saw it. It wasn't long before they arrived at a small valley. The lair of the wild beast was inside. Be careful. They all drew their spirit tools. After all, they had to face a late-stage core formation tier great beast, so they had to be extremely careful. Ong! Amidst the roar of a beast, pong, 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 the ground trembled madly, and a massive wild beast rushed out. It looked like a bear, but its whole body was covered with spikes like a porcupine. Each spike was close to 3 meters long, and looked very terrifying. This was a vicious beast at the late stage of the core formation tier. With this roar, everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Follow me! Hiyafu leaped out, and with a command, 3 prodigies of the core formation tier also stepped out. They were the main force of the assault against the fierce beast. If the cauldron forging tiers were to block a late-stage core formation tier great beast, the mortality rate would be frighteningly high. Everyone moved and charged towards this fierce beast. The progress of the matter was very smooth. As the saying goes, an abundance of ants could bite an elephant to death, What more when everyone was much stronger than ants? They could completely be considered wolves. A pack of wolves devouring a tiger, blasting this fierce beast into smithereens. This was also within everyone's expectations. Thus, no one was especially excited, but when they thought that they would soon be able to obtain Feng Lin Stone, everyone became excited. It had practically been effortless to obtain such a treasure. They arrived at the end of the valley, and at the side of the lair of the wild beast, they indeed discovered a peculiar rock that was the size of a human head. Feng Lin Stone, someone called out, unable to conceal his excitement. This could speed up the nurturing of the celestial cores, saving hundreds of years of cultivation time. It was incredibly valuable. What's going on? The large black dog called out. He looked behind him, and a vigilant expression appeared on his face. Everyone turned around, all of them surprised. That was because they actually saw a world of ice and snow. How was this possible? They had just walked over. That was a very ordinary mountainous area, so why had it become a world of ice and snow? Formation, someone called out. Where's the Feng Lin Stone? Another person called out. Everyone turned around and saw that the peculiar rock had disappeared without a trace. How could a perfectly fine rock suddenly disappear? Who hid it? Someone shouted in agitation. This caused internal strife. You accuse me of hiding it, and I accuse you of stealing it secretly. All of a sudden, daggers were drawn. Everyone felt that aside from themselves being innocent, everyone else was the target of suspicion. The large black dog sneered, shook his head and said, "Bunch of fools. You've clearly fallen into a trap, yet you still want to kill each other. If you people don't die early, then the heavens are truly blind." These words successfully incited the anger of the masses, drawing the furious glares of a great many people. The large black dog wasn't afraid at all, and he glared back, saying, "What is it? Is Grandpa Bull wrong?" Meanwhile, Hiyafu pressed her hands down and said, "This matter is indeed strange. Everyone, calm down first." Though her cultivation level was not the highest, but as an exquisite beauty, her words naturally had considerable weight, and immediately silenced everyone. Hee. Never would I have thought that there would be a smart person. A voice rang out, yet it was completely indistinguishable from where it had come from, as it reverberated throughout the entire valley. "Who?" everyone shouted. "Your nightmare, the Reaper of Life." This voice rang out again, but it was very airy. Could not even be distinguished whether it was male or female. Enough with the pretense. Show yourself. Were you the one who took the Feng Lin Stone away? Who exactly are you? Everyone was talking at once, calling out one after another. You're about to die, so why are you asking so many questions? The voice said calmly. It was filled with mockery. The large black dog sneered and said, "Stop pretending. Don't you just want to show off your superiority? Otherwise, you could have just directly activated the formation to attack. Why would you still speak? Grandpa Bull looks down on people like you the most." The voice didn't ring out at the first instant. After a while, it flew into a humiliated rage and said, "Fat cow later. I'll cut you into pieces of beefsteak and roast you to eat." Everyone gradually calmed down. The present situation was that they were trapped in a formation, but they had completely no idea exactly how powerful this formation was. "What benefits do you have from trapping us here?" Hiyafu asked. The voice was silent for a moment before saying, "All right, since you're a beauty, I'll answer you. My master plans to concoct a divine pill, which requires at least 10,000 types of blood. The higher the cultivation level of the person who provides the blood, the better his natural talent, and the better the effects of the divine pill that he concocts. Especially for so-called prodigies like you guys. That blood is an excellent ingredient. If I asked you guys for it, you guys would definitely not agree. Hence, I only used a small scheme using the Feng Lin Stone as bait, and you guys scrambled over." When everyone heard this, their expressions turned ugly. As it turned out, this matter had only been a deception from beginning to end. Is that Feng Lin Stone real or fake? Someone still had a sliver of hope. Ha ha ha. To be able to ask such a question, You are really pitifully stupid, the voice said. Hiyafa nodded. Looks like the person who spread the news of the Feng Lin stone is you, right? What were they supposed to do? Everyone's expressions changed drastically. Right at this moment, Xiao, a figure leaped out and barged into the formation. Ling Han. Was he seeking death? Xiao. An ice sword immediately appeared, stabbing towards Ling Han. Pong! Ling Han threw a punch, and the ice sword was instantly shattered. However, blood also bloomed from his fist. Thankfully, the remaining power was automatically dispersed by the celestial cauldron. What a powerful guy! Everyone was stunned. That was the attack of late-stage core formation tier, yet it was actually blocked by Ling Han. Furthermore, Ling Han was still in a state of madness. Fuck! This is only a cauldron forging tier. If this guy could leave here alive, could he really be able to challenge the freakish person from the North Heavenly Realm? Or even be able to win? Of course, the prerequisite was that he had to survive the current dilemma first. Shua! Another ice sword appeared, slashing towards Ling Han. Ling Han still hadn't exited his state of comprehension. His hands naturally danced, pressing down on the ice sword. Frighteningly, there was a black light connecting his hands, exuding an incredibly deep aura. When everyone saw this, a chill rose up from the bottom of their hearts. What kind of technique was this, or was it a high-level energy? Pong! Ling Han's attack landed on the ice sword, and the ice sword shattered again, turning into pure heaven and earth energy, while his hands were completely unscathed this time. Fuck! Everyone's eyes widened, feeling a sense of disbelief. You are too fucking strong, aren't you? Ling Han appeared to be unconscious, but in truth, in the depths of his mind, his intent was presently at a crucial moment of comprehending the god-slaying technique. Thus, he couldn't help but begin to practice it. When he encountered an attack, he would naturally use the god-slaying technique to deal with it. What he channeled now was not the ancient Sun Divine Scroll, but rather the Nine Suns Divine Scroll, a cultivation technique created by the Nine Suns Saint. The cultivation technique was matched with the celestial technique, and that was what allowed the might of the celestial technique to be activated to its fullest. Of course, this pinnacle level was only relative. Very few people had reached or even surpassed the level of the creator. Cultivation techniques were the true foundations of a force. Any celestial technique would be deduced from this. For example, the 6 characters Bright King Curse. Why was the might of Ling Han's roar inferior to Prosperous Heaven? It was because he hadn't cultivated the Buddhist race cultivation technique. It being a castrated version was also one of the reasons. The Nine Suns Saint held Ling Han in such high regard, so he naturally would not be stingy. Teaching him all of the Nine Suns Divine Scroll would allow Ling Han to cultivate all the way to Saint tier without a hitch. With the boost of the Saint-level cultivation technique, the god-slaying technique began to unleash its might boundlessly terrifying. Shwa! 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 The ice swords continued to slash, and pierce. This was a formation that had been formed by extracting the power of heaven and earth, and the power of heaven and earth was endless, so its attacks were naturally endless. Ling Han waved his hands continuously. The god-slaying technique unleashed its might, and dispersed one attack after another. Even if there was still energy left to attack, the only celestial cauldron could still easily disperse it. However, after blocking a few dozen moves, his face involuntarily paled, and he could not catch his breath. He could no longer channel the god-slaying technique. This was very normal. This was a saint technique, so how could a cauldron forging tier cultivator channel it for a long time? Shwa! An ice sword slashed over. Ling Han's eyes instantly became clear again. He had already withdrawn from the comprehension of the god-slaying technique. Immediately, he threw a punch, and the starlight screen wrapped around his fist, forming an effective protection. Pong! With a single punch, the ice sword was immediately shattered, but the deep power continued to blast over, enough to kill even a martial artist in the early stage of the core formation tier. Unfortunately, Ling Han was a freak. The only celestial cauldron trembled slightly, and the impact was instantly dispersed completely. Formation! Ling Han frowned. The events from before surged into his mind like a tidal wave, and he was able to receive these memories. He had been cultivating all this while, so he had automatically blocked out everything else. However, what he could see and hear would not disappear. It was only now that he could receive and deal with everything. He humphed lightly and used his eye technique. Instantly, he saw something that others could not. The direction of the power of heaven and earth. What was the source of formations? The power of heaven and earth. It's all thanks to Brother Ding this time. Brother Ding, if there's anything you need, just say the word, and I'll put my life on the line for you. Everyone gathered around him, saying words of gratitude. Some were even willing to sacrifice their lives for him. These people might not really be hot-blooded, though. Instead, they had deliberately said this to gain a connection with Ling Han. After all, this guy was too freakish. If they really had such a friend, it would naturally be greatly beneficial in future. Ling Han maintained Ding Yi's arrogant style, and only nodded indifferently at everyone's goodwill. He wasn't enthusiastic at all. Brother, that bastard wants to make the old bull into a beefsteak. Let's go and kill him. The large black dog ran over, still looking very angry, though he could only be made into a dog chop at most. All right. Ling Han nodded. Both he and the large black dog had been screwed over, so he naturally couldn't let things slide just like that. Moreover, he was also extremely curious about what pill that person's master was going to concoct. How could he be so cruel? Brother Ding Dash, seeing that Ling Han and the large black dog were about to leave, Yafu hurriedly called out. "En?" Ling Han stopped and turned around to look at her, a puzzled expression on his face. "And nothing." At first, Yafu wanted to urge him to stay or go with her, but when she saw Ling Han's expression, she swallowed her words. Ling Han wore an aloof expression as he continued to advance with the large black dog. After leaving the valley, the large black dog couldn't help but ask, "Brat, did you know that you touched her breasts?" Ling Han couldn't help but feel awkward, but his expression darkened. "Was it as exaggerated as you say?" "All right, even if it's just a slight touch, you're the one who's taken advantage of her," the large black dog continued. "Now, she's clearly attracted by the domineering aura that you're exuding. Why don't you take her? You see, since the West Heavenly Realm looks down on us, let's kidnap all their beauties. When the time comes, let's see how those guys will cry. Little Han, what do you say?" Hey, hey, hey! Why are you walking so fast? Wait for the Grandpa do Grandpa Bull." Ling Han naturally remembered everything. However, firstly, he did not have the slightest interest in Yafu. Secondly, he had not come here to pick up a girl. Furthermore, this was a false identity. What need was there for him to cause a girl to miss him so much and waste her feelings? Thus, he remained calm and collected, putting everything out in the bud. He actually didn't have any ill feelings toward the West Heavenly Realm. He was only displeased with the actions of the Donglin Imperial clan. "Let Grandpa Dog recall the appearance and smell of that person," the large black dog said. Being able to become a cauldron-forging tier, its memory was naturally very good. After it recalled for a while, it sniffed with its nose and said, "Come with Grandpa Dog." The large black dog walked in front, while Ling Han followed behind. However, looking at a large black ox sniffing around on the ground, climbing onto a tree one moment, and then flying into the air on a spirit tool the next, Ling Han only felt that this scene was filled with humor. "What are you laughing at?" The large black dog turned around. Ling Han couldn't help but smile and said, "Nothing, nothing. There must be something." The large black dog's expression was filled with suspicion. "It's really nothing," Ling Han emphasized. As they spoke, they had arrived at another valley. "That bastard is inside," the large black dog said. Ling Han cracked a smile. "Let's give him a surprise." They quietly entered into the valley, and saw that this method was more or less the same. Another group of people had been enticed by the Feng Lin stone, and had themselves stepped into a trap. However, now that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind it, that person would never think that Ling Han and the large black dog were presently looking for him from behind. At this moment, There was no need for the large black dog to use his dog's nose anymore. Ling Han released his divine sense and had a complete grasp of the situation in the entire valley. Found him. Although Ling Han didn't know what that person's divine sense fluctuation was like, there was only a single divine sense fluctuation. Thus, this person must be the mastermind. He walked quietly, approaching that person. It wasn't long before they saw a person standing at the peak of the mountain. He wore a cold smile as he looked down at them, a hint of disdain in his expression. "Bunch of idiots," he mumbled to himself. "Oh, how are they idiots?" Ling Han asked with a smile. Shua, that person, immediately turned around and saw that it was a man in his 30s. He looked ordinary, and his cultivation level was only cauldron forging tier. "It's you!" the man exclaimed in astonishment. There was a look of disbelief on his face. Indeed, how could he believe this? Ling Han should have been trapped in the formation. Ling Han cracked a smile. "Did you get a little scare?" The man frowned deeply. He knew himself well. He was only in the cauldron forging tier, and this Ding Yi was actually capable of resisting He Yafu, who was in the early stage of core formation tier. His abilities were naturally far superior to his. Hence, he would definitely die if he faced him head-on. "Hee, we can talk things over," the man hurriedly said with a smile. Ling Han also smiled. "All right, then let's start with your name." "My name is Lu Bo," the man said very frankly. Of course, it was unknown whether this was a fabrication or not. "You want to kill me in a trap and extract blood for pill concoction. So how should we calculate this debt?" Ling Han asked again. Lu Bo's expression was serious. "Brother, I am only obeying the commands of others. There is absolutely nothing I can do." "By whose command?" Lu Bo's eyes darted around, and he finally said, "A mighty figure. Brother, don't ask anymore. If I speak, not only will I lose my life, but you will also be silenced. Brother, your sister." Pong! A hoof immediately landed on the back of Lu Bo's head, and the large black dog jumped out. "Bastard, didn't you want to eat some beefsteak?" A muscle twitched in Lu Bo's cheek. How could he have imagined that Ling Han would still be able to escape at that time? Naturally, he had not taken the large black dog seriously, and mocked him casually. If he had known that this would happen, he would have accumulated some declaration of goodwill. Grandpa Bull, everything is a misunderstanding," he carefully apologized. "Misunderstanding your sister." The large black dog's hoof struck again. Lu Bo didn't dare to dodge at all. He gritted his teeth in pain as the large black dog landed a solid hit on him. Milords, calm down," he said humbly. In order to survive, he naturally couldn't be stubborn now. "Who's your master?" the large black dog interrogated on Ling Han's behalf. "I really can't say." Lu Bo looked very anxious. "My two lords, I am really thinking for your sakes. My master's background is too powerful. If I say his name, something will happen." "You're not going to tell me? Then I can only search your soul," the large black dog balefully said. A look of shock immediately appeared on Lu Bo's face. With a soul search, no secret could be kept. Furthermore, a soul search would also have a very strong effect on the victim. It would not be strange for him to become an idiot or even have his mind actually shattered. He did not want to become an idiot or die in the slightest. "Lords, I really can't say, I really can't," he wailed miserably. "Looks like you're not going to give up until you see the coffin." The large black dog stretched out a hoof. I'll speak. Lu Bo couldn't hold on any longer, and hurriedly compromised. "My master is Fu Huayang." Fu Huayang. Ling Han looked towards the large black dog. He had never heard of this name before. You haven't even heard of my master's name?" Lu Bo was shocked, and hurriedly asked. "What is it?" "Should I know?" Ling Han asked. "My master is a descendant of the imperial clan," Lu Bo declared, his face filled with pride. The imperial clan was high and noble, like a god from the 9 heavens. All the others could only bow in worship. If Ling Han had still been suspicious before, when he saw this expression, he was certain that this guy was telling the truth. His master was indeed a descendant of the imperial clan. Otherwise, he would not have this kind of bone-deep feeling of superiority. Let me check. The large black dog connected to the galaxy network and began to look up information. After a while, it said, Fu Huiyang is the descendant of the Destiny Saint Emperor. He's only a member of the branch family, but his talent is extremely high. Moreover, he's also an alchemist. The imperial clans had always been mysterious. Moreover, this was only because Fu Huiyang was a member of the branch family. Otherwise, it was possible that his name wouldn't even be known to outsiders. Ling Han nodded, then turned to look at Lu Bo, and asked, What pill does Fu Huiyang want to concoct? I don't know, Lu Bo replied with a shake of his head. Upon seeing the large black dog's vicious expression, he hurriedly said, I really don't know what Master wants to do. He would only issue direct commands, so why would he explain this to me? That was true. Where is Fu Huiyang now? Lu Bo was surprised, and looked at Ling Han with a shocked expression. What did this guy want to do? His master was a member of the imperial clan. Even if he was only from the branch clan, wasn't it awesome enough to have the name of imperial clan? Could it be that he wanted to seek his master out for an accounting? That's right. Ling Han patted his shoulder. So, hurry up and tell me his whereabouts. My patience has always been limited. Lu Bo immediately wanted to shake his head. He had a natural reverence for Fu Huiyang, both because of the great reputation of the imperial clan, and also because of Fu Huiyang's own strength. But on second thought, he changed his mind and said, My master is an Anyunin in Golden Peace City. Ling Han smiled and said, This Fu Huiyang's cultivation level is at least core formation tier, right? Lu Bo opened his mouth and said something soundlessly. His face filled with surprise. What he meant was, How do you know? It's simple. Previously, you looked like you didn't want to say anything, but in the blink of an eye, you said it. You probably thought that with Fu Huiyang's strength, if we went to find him, that would be courting death, Ling Han said. Fuck. Can you read my mind? I cannot read your mind. I'm simply analyzing, Ling Han said. The large black dog rushed over and kicked Lu Bo to the ground. Tell me, what cultivation level is Fu Huiyang at? Lu Bo sighed. Core formation tier late stage. Tisk, no big deal. The large black dog immediately revealed a disdainful expression. Ling Han had even killed a consummate level core formation tier cultivator before. Yet Ling Han was not careless, and asked, What about battle prowess? I don't know. Lu Bo hurriedly shook his head. Heh, you really don't know? Ling Han signaled at the large black dog with his eyes. The large black dog understood his signal, and immediately began to throw punches and kicks. You're not going to tell me, are you? The large black dog sneered. Grandpa Bull will kick your balls to burst, so I'll just let you be an eunuch in future. Lu Bo's face instantly turned green. He had no wish to become an eunuch. That would be the end of his life. I really don't know Master's strength, but it's at least above 10th heaven, he said. 10th heaven. The large black dog bared his teeth. Faced with such an existence, even if Ling Han could protect himself, it was impossible for him to win. Is he really that powerful? It looked towards Ling Han. Ling Han nodded. The battle prowess of an ordinary core formation tier consummate level alchemist would probably be 8th heaven, but this is calculated in terms of one breaking through from heaven cauldron or bronze cauldron. The quality of celestial cauldron is higher, and the more celestial cauldrons formed, then the battle prowess of core formation tier would definitely be higher. Lu Yongchong, Zhongsuin Tiankuan, and the other ultimate prodigies of the core formation tier and so on all had battle prowess of at least 15th heaven, and this was something that Ling Han could see from afar. In truth, it was possible that it was even higher. Coming from the imperial clan, and being able to be called a prodigy, breaking through to the core formation tier with 7 or 8 golden cauldrons was naturally very normal. Thus, it wouldn't be strange for this battle prowess to surpass the 10th heaven. What do we do? The large black dog looked towards Ling Han. We have to go and take a look. We can't allow others to bully us for nothing, Ling Han said calmly. The large black dog nodded in agreement. They weren't the type to swallow their grievances. My lords, Can you please let me go? Lu Bo asked carefully. I'm really only doing this on orders. The large black dog immediately lashed out. Pa! His paw smashed Lu Bo's head into smithereens. This was an accomplice, so there was naturally no reason to spare his life. Come. Let's go to the Golden Peace City. Ling Han thought for a moment, then closed the formation. Then he flew on his divine tool, heading towards the Golden Peace City. Lu Bo was located in the hub of this formation, and it was very convenient to activate and deactivate it. With the battle prowess of that guy just now, he was completely capable of easily killing all of them, so what need was there for him to do something unnecessary and set up some kind of formation? In that case, they had really repaid kindness with hatred. Then they deserved to be beaten. Ling Han and the large black dog didn't fly on their tools anymore. They couldn't use movement techniques, and their speed wasn't even as fast as traveling on the ground. Of course, it would be different if they advanced into the core formation tier. They didn't need a spirit tool to fly, and they could also use movement techniques in midair, so their speed would increase explosively. Half a day later, they arrived at the Golden Peace City. On Yuan Inn was very easy to find, and the man and dog soon arrived at their destination. This inn was very big, really very big. There were both ordinary rooms as well as isolated courtyards. The cost of renting for a day was very shocking. Ling Han and the large black dog also rented a courtyard. Fu Huiyang was too powerful, so it was not appropriate for them to alert him. After settling down, Ling Han released his divine sense to search for Fu Huiyang. It wasn't long before he located a powerful aura. It was like a ball of flames, and it was extremely terrifying. However, upon closer examination, he discovered that these flames were ice-cold and extremely bizarre. This was Fu Huiyang? What cultivation technique was he cultivating? How strange. Right at this moment, the other party had already sensed it. His divine sense began a counter-exploration of Ling Han. Good Lord, this divine sense was really too sharp. Ling Han hurriedly withdrew his divine sense. Then, he opened his eyes and said to the large black dog, "We've been discovered. Fuck! That person's senses are so terrifying." The large black dog exclaimed in astonishment. "Come on out." Right at this moment, a gentle voice was heard from outside, without the slightest bit of anger. Ling Han smiled faintly and strode out. Ling Han walked out, only to see a young man standing in the courtyard. This man was tall and slender, and wore a milky white long robe, appearing very carefree. However, though the majority of his hair was jet black, there was a small tuft that was white. It seemed to have been deliberately dyed, and appeared very conspicuous. "Fu Huiyang?" Ling Han asked, though he was already 90% sure. The man nodded. "I am Fu Huiyang." He paused and asked in return, "That subordinate of mine should have fallen into your hands, right?" Ling Han did not hide anything either. "That's right. Is he dead?" Fu Huiyang asked. "He's dead." Fu Huiyang smiled. "Just in time, to save me the trouble of making a move." "You're so cruel to your own subordinates?" Ling Han asked. "A subordinate that has betrayed his master. Should I keep him alive to continue betraying me?" Fu Huiyang asked with a smile. Hee. Looks like you would rather betray the world than have the world betray you," Ling Han said. Fu Huiyang shook his head. "I am a member of the imperial clan, so I am naturally high and noble. So what if I decide the life and death of an ant? In my eyes, that subordinate of mine is an ant, and aren't you the same?" "White-haired man, your mouth is asking for a beating." The large black dog strode out. His mouth was much more toxic than Ling Han's. However, Fu Huiyang was not angered. He merely swept an indifferent glance over the large black dog, and his eyes returned to Ling Han. "You are a little special. You are clearly only in cauldron forging tier, yet give me a very strong feeling. Of course, no matter how strong he is only an ant. He is only that slight bit stronger than any ordinary ant." Ling Han shook his head. "You keep calling others ants, and say that you are high and noble. So what if you are a member of the imperial clan? Do you have 4 legs or 6 arms?" Fu Huiyang was calm. appearing to be extremely subtle. He looked at Ling Han. Your blood should be very useful. He moved aggressively, grabbing out at Ling Han. Shio, shio, shio. As he stretched out his hand, streaks of light overflowed from his fingers, as if it was a fantasy. Ling Han clenched his hand into a fist and shot out a punch. Pong! The two of them exchanged a blow, and Ling Han immediately stumbled back. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his lips. So strong. How could this guy only have 10th heaven-level battle prowess? He was at least 13th or 14th heaven. Even if the only celestial cauldron had dispersed most of the power of this blow, the shockwaves from the impact still caused Ling Han to be injured. Moreover, this attack had only been a casual move from Fu Huiyang. Once he became serious, just how strong would his battle prowess be? Fu Huiyang was also extremely stunned. As he saw it, this stretch of his hand would definitely be able to capture Ling Han, but Ling Han had actually sent his hand flying with a single punch. Ling Han's power was truly astonishing. However, Ling Han immediately discovered that the ground around him was collapsing, and buildings were collapsing one after another. Was there an earthquake? Of course not. It was Fu Huiyang. He was in midair, and he attacked downwards without any reservations. With a palm strike, a large area immediately sank. This was too deranged. It should be known that this was not an empty city. A great many of the houses were occupied, and being knocked over with a single palm strike from Fu Huiyang, at least 90% of the residents were immediately killed. How innocent were these people? Not only Ling Han, but even the large black dog was enraged. This was far too inhumane. Heh! All of this is because of you people, Fu Huiyang said calmly. If you people hadn't fled, the people here wouldn't have died. Thus, you people are the true culprits who killed these people. Fuck! How could there be such a shameless person? Fu Huiyang, fuck your mother! The large black dog spat out word by word. Shio, shio, shio. With such a large commotion happening, the elites in the city naturally could not just sit by and watch. They all flew into the skies. Evil brat, how dare you! There was actually another true self-tier elite, who immediately stretched out a hand to grab Fu Huiyang. This is the business of the imperial clan. Step back. Fu Huiyang rebuked lightly. What? The true self-tier elite's hand was halfway out, yet he forcefully retracted it. The imperial clan was a clan that resided above the 9 heavens. Who dared to offend them? Just as Fu Huiyang had said just now, even if he announced to the world that he was going to use the blood of 10,000 people to concoct alchemical pills, who would dare to do anything to him? How are you going to prove that you're an imperial clan member? The true self-tier elite shouted. Since he had asked this question, it meant that he had already cowered, and had the intention to retreat. Fu Huiyang merely smiled faintly. Boom! An incredibly frightening aura suddenly rose up from his body, as majestic as if he was a great emperor. This was imperial blood. The true self-tier elite no longer had any doubts. Only the imperial clan would be able to ignite the imperial blood. This was solid proof. He did not say another word, but rather turned around and left. So be it if the Golden Peace City was destroyed. It was fine as long as his clansmen were fine. Fu Huiyang smiled faintly. In his eyes, this was only natural. When the imperial clan did things, who dared to stop them? I was right, wasn't I? Fu Huiyang stood in midair. A core formation tier cultivator could step on empty air, and standing in midair, it could be said that he was extremely showy. He continued to wave his hand in attack, and palm strikes landed, causing the ground around him to crumble. Aren't you going to come out? He asked calmly. How many more people do you want to sacrifice for you? Motherfucker! Ling Han and the large black dog both cursed internally. This Fu Huiyang was really too inhumane. They exchanged a glance, and both of them dashed out of the city. Even if the large black dog was scheming and devious, he still couldn't stand by and watch as so many innocent people died for his sake. An ant is an ant, after all, Fu Huiyang said calmly. As he saw it, Ling Han and the large black dog's sacrificial spirit was practically incomparably stupid. They were all just ants, so what if 1,000 or 10,000 died? However, it was just right for him to come out. He was very interested in Ling Han's blood. If he used it to concoct alchemical pills, it should have outstanding effects, and heal the hidden injuries that had been left behind when he had previously cultivated an extraordinary technique. From there, he would be able to open up a wide path, allowing him to reach the peak of martial arts. He leaped up and set off in pursuit of Ling Han and the large black dog. Coming from the Imperial clan, even if he was only a member of a branch clan, he had grasped a very high-level movement technique, and added with the fact that his cultivation level was superior, his speed was not the slightest bit slower than Ling Han. No matter how Ling Han used the terrain in the mountains to break free, he would always follow closely behind him. "Little Han, why is this sticky candy so hard to deal with?" The large black dog communicated through divine sense. Ling Han frowned upon hearing this. He truly wanted to burn Fu Huiyang to death. However, if he used the heavenly Tao flames, it would be too easy to connect him with the real him. That was because in the White Lotus Mystery Realm, he had used the heavenly Tao flames to resist Feng Jixing's rare treasure. With his current popularity, he would definitely be thoroughly studied. Thus, the fact that he had used the heavenly Tao flames meant that his false identity could no longer be used. Use a false body? He just asked the world, where would there be so many freakish freaks that could defeat a core formation tier as a cauldron forging tier? "Let's tunnel underground," Ling Han said. He squeezed into the ground, and destructive energy surged, easily melting the ground and forming a passageway. Boom! Explosions rang out from above. Clearly, Fu Huiyang had also discovered that they were fleeing underground, and had also begun to blast open the ground in pursuit. Ling Han did not travel in a straight line, and continued to circle around. After more than an hour, he finally managed to throw Fu Huiyang off his tail. He had succeeded, of course, because his speed was not much inferior to Fu Huiyang. Otherwise, if it was really an ordinary core formation tier cultivator facing an ordinary cauldron forging tier cultivator, he would have long since become a corpse. Ling Han and the large black dog crawled out of the ground. They had already arrived at the side of a large lake, so they simply washed themselves, and began barbecuing food with another fire to fill their stomachs. "Damn it, Grandpa Dog has never been in such a sorry state in my life," the large black dog said angrily as he ate. Ling Han, on the other hand, wasn't angered. This wasn't the first time he had been hunted, but this Fu Huiyang was indeed detestable. He had a lofty attitude, and treated everyone in the world like an ant. This kind of mentality was truly disgusting. "This person is definitely on the list of people to be killed," he said calmly. "You're quite calm, brat." The large black dog shook his head. "What else can I do?" Ling Han said with a smile. "We'll find that Zhou Yun and give him a good thrashing," the large black dog said. This was their original plan. They would try their best to find someone who was ranked higher to fight and increase their reputation. "All right," Ling Han nodded. In any case, he was still a bit away from the cauldron forging tier consummate level, so for the moment, it was impossible for him to break through to the core formation tier. In that case, he had best set aside Fu Huiyang's matter first, to avoid ruining his mood just thinking about it. They returned to the city, and had just gone to investigate the whereabouts of Zhou Yun, when they found out a piece of news that disgusted them. As it turned out, Fu Huiyang had actually issued a bounty to capture Ling Han and the large black dog. This guy was quite omnipotent, and actually found out the identities of Ling Han and the large black dog. He pointed out that he wanted to capture the newly risen Ding Yi and Ding Air. He only requested that Ding Yi be captured alive, and as for Ding Air, there was no restriction on his life or death. And what was the reward? It was merely a friendship with Fu Huiyang. A mere core formation tier cultivator. Was his friendship worth anything? It was worth it. That was because he was a member of the Imperial clan. As long as they had established a relation to him, then no matter who wanted to target them, they would have to consider whether this would anger an Imperial clan and draw a fatal disaster onto themselves. Hence, a great many forces had already moved when they heard the news, and began to search for Ling Han and the large black dog all over the world. There was no lack of those in the core formation tier or even the true self tier among them. "This is too wanton, isn't it?" The large black dog trembled in anger. "That guy has destroyed an entire city, and in the end, Not only is no one going to deal with him, they are even helping him hunt us down? Strictly speaking, they are hunting you down. As for me, there's no danger to my life. Ling Han corrected, adjusting the atmosphere. Grandpa Dog is really about to die from fury. The large black dog spat repeatedly. Is the Imperial clan really that impressive? Very impressive. Ling Han nodded, then smiled. But so what? This person. I am definitely going to kill him. Little Han. Grandpa Dog likes your unyielding personality. The large black dog patted Ling Han's shoulder. Go, work hard. Grandpa Dog will be silently cheering you on from behind. Get lost. None of them dared to be careless. Now, the victim was going to be hunted down all over the world. Just thinking about it made them feel depressed and furious. With the existence of the Galaxy Network, it was not difficult to find out about Zhou Yun. The man and dog soon set out, planning to leave this planet after completing this mission. Why didn't they leave now? Of course, it was because they couldn't swallow this injustice. If they left after defeating Zhou Yun, it would be equivalent to telling Fu Huiyang that he wasn't afraid of him, and that he was the next to be defeated. A day later, they arrived at Wide Cloud City. It was said that Zhou Yun was here. Hehe, please wait. They arrived at the city gates, and had not even entered the city gates, when they saw a middle-aged man approach them. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Ling Han and the large black dog exchanged looks. They had actually been ambushed? Since you're already here, there's no need for you to leave, the middle-aged man said with a smile. He extended a hand toward Ling Han, and a terrifying aura instantly surged into the surroundings. This was an elite at the consummate level of the core formation tier. Ling Han shouted lightly, and raised his fists to greet the incoming attack. Pong! The two of them exchanged a blow, and Ling Han instantly stumbled, taking a step back. However, the remaining power had already been completely dispersed by the only celestial cauldron, so he was naturally unscathed. The middle-aged man was obviously shocked. He had not thought that his attack would actually not succeed. He humphed lightly, and once again stretched out a hand towards Ling Han. Let's go! Ling Han grabbed the large black dog and left quickly. Now, it was not them that had gone to look for Zhou Yun, but rather they themselves that were being hunted. Do you think you can escape? The middle-aged man said with a humph. He soared into the sky and chased after Ling Han. Old shitty killer, did we kill your father, or did we sell off your mother? We've never met before, so why are you acting so crazy? The large black dog had nothing to do anyway, so he started to shout at the top of his lungs. More importantly, not only was it shouting, but it was also transmitting a message through divine sense. Thus, the middle-aged man first heard the large black dog's words in his mind, then heard them again. Fuck, this insult actually had a double blow? The middle-aged man couldn't help but feel enraged, and attacked repeatedly. However, Ling Han's speed was extremely fast, and every time he attacked, he would miss. Haha, can't hit us, can't hit us. You old shitty killer, just eat shit behind me. The large black dog laughed loudly, and once again used the double blow. The middle-aged man humphed, and sent a message through divine sense. Do you guys know who I am? He could only use his divine sense to communicate. If he opened his mouth to speak, because the speed of sound was far inferior to their soaring speed, it was naturally impossible for the people chasing behind to transmit his words to the people in front of them. I do. Aren't you my grandson? The large black dog continued his verbal attack. The middle-aged man's expression changed again and again. Why was this large black ox so detestable? Can't you say a few good words? He suppressed his anger, and said, This lord's surname is Chang, and our Chang clan has mastered a secret technique. As long as we have gotten a look, then no matter where it is, we would be able to find it. So, let me give you a word of advice. Stop obediently, and don't waste any time. The large black dog snickered, and said, Watch my mouth. Get lost. The middle-aged man merely smirked coldly. I have already reported all your information back to the clan. Soon, it will not only be me hunting you down, but the entire Chung clan will also be working. Ling Han was unafraid of this middle-aged man. It wasn't like he hadn't killed someone at the consummate level of core formation tier before. Moreover, this person's strength was only at the 9th heaven, so he couldn't do anything to him at all. However, if he drew Fu Huiyang out again, things would be much more difficult. I'm truly impressed by you people. You actually dared to offend the Imperial clan, the middle-aged man said. He continued to chase after Ling Han. This was a psychological battle, and he was going to incite fear in Ling Han and the large black dog's hearts. He's just from a side branch of the Imperial clan. What's there to be afraid of? The large black dog was responsible for the cursing battle. On the other hand, your Chung clan sounds so awesome, yet in the end you're willing to become a dog pay cow for a sidle branch of the Imperial clan. I look down on you. It's our honor to be able to work for the Imperial clan, the middle-aged man said. He wasn't ashamed, but rather proud. With how shameless he was, the large black dog didn't know what else to say. In his eyes, this was something that he was proud of. In that case, what meaning was there to attack him? Instead, he would consider it as praise. Old shitty killer, come and chase me. If you manage to catch me, I'll take you in as my son. The large black dog started to act shamelessly again. This was his specialty, and he could make anyone seethe with anger. As expected, the more the middle-aged man listened, the angrier he became, and his expression became uglier and uglier. I, Chang Dongbing, swear that when I catch this despicable bull, I will definitely eat you all, bite by bite. Being able to incite the fury of a core formation tier elite, the large black dog's skill was definitely not to be underestimated. Haha, there's still a pile of shit in my stomach. Are you also going to eat with me? The large black dog laughed loudly. He didn't know the meaning of the word vulgar. Every time he opened his mouth, it would drive others crazy. Chang Dongbing's expression instantly darkened. Just now, he had still been swearing there that he would devour the large black dog. But in the blink of an eye, the large black dog was asking him if he would be eating shit as well. This was really too fucking despicable, wasn't it? Despicable bull. You're seeking death. He was so furious that flames were burning all over his body, and he had turned into a flaming person. Yo, old shitty killer, why did you suddenly start burning? The large black dog feigned surprise. It can't be that you are enjoying your food so much that you want to roast yourself and eat yourself, right? Awesome, you are really awesome. This kind of glutton really makes me prostrate myself in admiration. Chang Dongbing had already sealed his ears, not wanting to listen to the large black dog's words. However, he could not seal off his mind because he still had to communicate with his clansmen. Thus, he still had to endure the verbal attacks from the large black dog. He was already too lazy to speak, and merely stared coldly at the large black dog. This was already a dead bull. Ling Han suddenly frowned. His divine sense had already captured 7 figures rapidly approaching him from ahead and to the side. It was as if they had spread out a net, and now was the time to reel in the net. The other members of the Chung clan? It was very possible. Chang Dongbing had been contacting the members of his clan through the Galaxy network. Thus, after such a long time, it was very normal for the members of the Chung clan to leap over from various directions through shortcuts. However, because the distance was too far, he could only sense that someone was coming, but could not confirm the cultivation levels of these people. He suddenly stopped. There was no point in continuing to run. He would only fall into the encirclement. Chang Dongbing was surprised. He had not thought that Ling Han would suddenly stop. Could it be that the other party had realized? However, that was fine. In any case, the elites of the clan had already arrived, and the siege was already formed. Brat, why aren't you running anymore? He asked calmly, filled with a sense of superiority. Ling Han remained silent. Since the large black dog was here, there was no need for him to be responsible for the mission of attracting animosity. In a short while, 7 figures appeared. They all looked to be in their 50s or 60s, and looked to be middle-aged geezers. That's not right. There was actually a young man. He looked to be in his 20s or 30s at most, and was filled with vitality. Ling Han focused his gaze on this young man. Judging by the aura that he was exuding, this person was most likely at the level of the consummate level of the core formation tier. Hee. Come. Let me introduce. When Cheng Dongbing saw how Ling Han was staring at that young man, he couldn't help but smile. This is a prodigy of our Cheng clan, Cheng Wu. He has only cultivated for 80 years, and is already at the consummate level of core formation tier. Wuer will definitely be the first of our Cheng clan to break through to the true self tier. In future, he will create a new era for the Cheng clan. Ling Han scoffed and said, "So you're already in your 70s or 80s, and you're still pretending to be young." Cheng Wu humphed, and was the first to charge over. He shot out a punch, and divine light flickered, turning into a dozen over swords of light that shot towards Ling Han. Ling Han brandished his fists in response. Pung, the power of his fists collided, and his power immediately crumbled. However, Cheng Wu's swords of light was still there, continuing to shoot towards Ling Han. Piu, they all hit solidly. However, this kind of pure energy attack was no big deal for Ling Han. As long as it did not exceed the tolerance limit of the only celestial cauldron, he could easily disperse it. This was the power of about 10th heaven. Ling Han immediately thought, already having a direct understanding of Cheng Wu's strength. He was extremely calm, but Cheng Wu revealed an expression of intense shock. What kind of cauldron forging tier was this? Are you very shocked? The large black dog laughed mischievously. This is the strength of my underling. All of you, clean your behinds. I will go and kick them one by one later. This boy is indeed a little strange, Cheng Dongbing said. I struck him just now, but my power was like a clay ox entering the sea. No wonder an imperial son wanted to apprehend him. An elite from the Cheng clan said with a nod. There was greed in his eyes. Cheng Dongbing immediately warned, "This is a person that the imperial son wants, so don't have any other ideas." The elite from the Cheng clan shuddered, and clarity returned to his eyes. If he dared to rob the imperial clan of their prize, then no one in this world would be able to save him. Cheng Wu pondered for a moment. If a weapon is used, he can disperse the power, but it is not definite that he would be able to disperse the sharpness of a weapon. Fuck, this person that was acting young was quite discerning. Ling Han remained calm and collected. The only celestial cauldron could only dispel power attacks, but against attacks delivered by sharp weapons, such dispelling effects would not be as satisfactory. Cheng Dongbing and the others all drew out their weapons. Some were sabers, some were swords, but there were also rods, hammers, and whatnot. They were all 3-star spirit tools. They're all strong. Grandpa Dog can do nothing. The large black dog sent a mental message to Ling Han. Ling Han shook his head and said, "There's no need for you to attack. I'll deal with them with a few casual moves, and we'll leave." "All right." The large black dog nodded. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Xiao. Cheng Dongbing and the others all charged over at the same time, blasting Ling Han with their sharp weapons. The murderous aura surged forth. Wang instantly, even if they were in the core formation tier, so what? The bodies of the 8 elites all paused and sank into a momentary sluggishness. Ling Han took the chance to charge out. He focused on the weakest core formation tier and charged forwards to deliver a powerful attack. The God-slaying technique. This was the Pseudo-Emperor technique, and combined with the 9 Suns Divine Scroll, in truth, in terms of the present stage, its might was not the slightest bit inferior to the Imperial technique, and added with the fact that he had also used destructive energy. Black-colored energy danced between his hands. Pooh! He clapped his palms together and pressed them down on the chest of that member of the Cheng clan. Visibly, that person's chest immediately caved in, and Ling Han's hands actually stretched out from the other side. Destructive energy could destroy everything in the first place, and added with the terrifying might of the God-slaying technique, the might of a single strike was chillingly powerful, directly killing a core formation tier cultivator. Of course, this was only the middle stage of the core formation tier. Ling Han's attack had succeeded, and he didn't linger in battle at all, continuing to advance. In an instant, the 7 members of the Cheng clan had already recovered. Seeing one of their clansmen killed, they were all seething with rage. Despicable brat that should be killed. Chung Dongbing shouted harshly, his eyes spitting fire. Meanwhile, the large black dog laughed loudly. Old shitty killer, even if my brother was standing in front of you, allowing you to attack him, would you dare to kill him? Chung Dongbing couldn't help but feel his aura weaken. Would he dare to kill? Of course, he didn't dare to. Ling Han was someone that Fu Huiyang wanted alive. Would he dare to disobey a member of the imperial clan? That's why, old geezer, don't brag so much in the future. The large black dog waved his paw and said, "It's very embarrassing." The 7 members of the Chung clan were all angered to death. This person had killed one of their own, and actually still dared to mock and ridicule them. This despicable bull must be chopped into pieces, and we cannot allow it to die too easily. At least half a year's time. Meanwhile, the large black dog looked at Ling Han and said, "Strange, you were clearly the one who killed him, so why do they hate me so much?" Though these words were directed at Ling Han, it had used its divine sense to transmit a message so that the other members of the Chung clan could hear it clearly. Instantly, the members of the Chung clan were naturally even more furious. "Don't look at me with such anger. If you do, I'll be roasted into a barbecued beef." The large black dog mocked them to its heart's content, looking very pleased with itself. Ling Han still tunneled underground, throwing off his pursuers, but just as Chung Dongbing had said, they were skilled in tracking. Merely half a day had passed, and the Chung clan appeared once more. After exchanging a few moves, Ling Han began to retreat. The Chung clan had also learnt their lesson and placed great importance on the protection of their clansmen, especially Chung Wu. He was the least affected by Ling Han's murderous aura. Thus, after the murderous aura attacked him, he reacted at the first instant and made a move on Ling Han, saving his clansmen. "Ding Yi, don't even think of escaping this time," Chung Wu stated calmly. "I have also activated Galaxy Network's livestream. Your hideous state of being hunted all the way here will be seen by everyone." This old brat is quite good at playing." The large black dog smiled and said, "Brother, you have to take note of your image. Everyone in the universe is staring at you." Ling Han smiled faintly, not taking it to heart. Firstly, he was using a false identity, and secondly, a cauldron forging tier cultivator was being hunted down by 7 core formation tier cultivators. What was there to be embarrassed about? If anyone was going to lose face, that would be the Chung clan. To deal with a cauldron forging tier cultivator, they actually wanted 7 core formation tier cultivators to join forces. Die! Chung Wu and Chung Dongbing both controlled their spirit tools to charge over. This gave Ling Han a headache. After all, the only celestial cauldron could only disperse the barrage of pure power. His physical body was not strong enough to withstand being killed by a higher-level spirit tool. "Let's go." Ling Han immediately turned around and left without a fight. "Brat, aren't you very arrogant? Come battle. What are you running for?" The members of Chung clan all launched verbal attacks, as if they felt that they could not allow the large black dog to be ahead of them. However, they clearly had the wrong idea. Who was the large black dog? An overlord of insults in terms of verbal attacks alone. If it claimed to be second, no one would dare claim to be first. So what if the 7 of them joined in on the conversation? The large black dog began a verbal battle, engaging in verbal abuse. At first, the members of the Chung clan were still able to argue back, but as he continued to curse, they were defeated. They were completely no match for the despicable large black dog. He had cultivated his strength through cursing for several epochs, and was indeed not someone that the members of the Chung clan could compare to. In the end, the members of the Chung clan all obediently shut their mouths, and merely continued to hunt them down. This was broadcasted live through the Galaxy Network. Everyone saw this scene, and expressed their shock at Ling Han's battle prowess. West Heavenly Realm really produced a freakish being that could stand against Ling Han. Then, they all warned themselves mentally that if they encountered that large black ox, they definitely should not use their mouths if they could make a move. That would probably drive them to die with fury. Chasing, fleeing, chasing, fleeing. These seem to have become the main theme that would never change. Little Han, where are you running off to? The large black dog saw that Ling Han was running in circles and had no intention of leaving this planet. To find Zhou Yun, of course, Ling Han said calmly. Hiss, there are 7 people chasing behind us, and it is possible that there are even more people lying in ambush. You still want to look for Zhou Yun? The large black dog was given a fright. Isn't that more fun? Ling Han asked with a smile. You're truly a maniac, the large black dog remarked. However, Grandpa Dog likes you. Ling Han deliberately took a roundabout route, not allowing the members of the Chung clan to guess his target. They could only trace him from the clues that he had left behind. On this day, he once again cast off the members of the Chung clan and returned to Wide Cloud City. Zhou Yun was still here and had not left.